Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all joining us for the 22nd edition of World Sustainable Summit, India's premier platform for deliberating the discourse around sustainability and climate change. I'm Veena CP, Resource Associate at TERI, and will be your MC for today's proceedings. Over the last decade, the significance of digital economy has grown substantially. The COVID-19 has further accelerated the use of e-commerce services during the pandemic lockdown. With the increase in the growth of e-commerce, so will the need to address the environmental impacts both locally and globally. This thematic track, which includes two sessions, will explore the different ways to decarbonize the e-commerce sector and pave the way for a sustainable future. Now, I would like Reshmi to give the welcome remarks for today's session. Mr. Reshmi is a senior retired IAS officer of 1983 batch. As a former civil servant with over 35 years of experience, Mr. Reshmi has been involved with climate change policy making in India in the run up to and after the Paris Agreement. He was India's key negotiator for the climate change during several years. He held the position of Special Secretary MOCC and later the Chief Secretary of Government of Manipur. Currently, he is the Distinguished Fellow at TERI, where he works on climate change policy, strategy, and carbon market related issues. Mr. Reshmi, the floor is yours. Also, I request Mr. Sinha, sir, and Mr. Rao, sir, to be on the dais.
Friends, good afternoon and welcome to this session. First, let me, on behalf of TERI and Amazon, who are partnering with us in this session, in this event, welcome all of you, and also welcome in particular Mr. Shivendra Sinha, the advisor of Niti Aayog, and my colleague Mr. Rao from TERI, and all of you to discuss this issue of decarbonization of the e-commerce industry. It's an interesting subject because normally when we talk of decarbonization, we talk of the industry which is engaged in production of goods and products like this. We generally often tend to ignore the impact of services sector on the GDP. So why is it that we are talking about decarbonization of e-commerce? The services sector, as you know, is growing. It commands more than 50% of our current GDP, but it doesn't get factored in the emissions. The emissions inventory that we prepare, mostly it is six-fold sectoral division, which if you look at the India's inventory, which is filed by the Ministry of Environment, they look at 6 key sectors. Services don't figure in there, not directly, but services do contribute to emissions in a direct also and an indirect manner also. So the companies and the stakeholders which are engaged in the business of e-commerce, they are contributing to the growth of emissions in a very significant manner. It's not that they are, it is not in a bad sense that we are talking about it. We are only saying that they have a responsibility and they have a contribution which needs to be taken into account to be able to understand the dynamics of the impact of their operations on the emissions, and what is it that we can do in the years to come to see that the business and the operations become environmentally responsible. Now, as all of you know, that SEBI, this Security Exchange Board of India, which is the organization which regulates the business operations in the country, the business operations of the corporates, their conduct actually, they have a mandate for business responsibility and reporting. They have a guideline. And I'm sure major corporates like Amazon and others who are supposed to file their reports under the BRSR mandate, they would be looking at the kind of indicators which they are expected to disclose. They have, there are two indicators there, if I may draw your attention, that one is an essential disclosure, essential indicators, and the other group of indicators are what is called leadership indicators. The kind of operations and their contribution to emissions that we are looking at, which is captured in scope 1 and 2, are part of the essential indicators. But scope 3 emissions are not part of essential indicators, they are part of leadership indicators. So this is the reason why we need to talk about it. Because when the services industry, in particular the e-commerce industry talks about emissions, they generally talk about scope 3 emissions. The scope 1 and 2 emissions, which are directly attributable to them, are very small in proportion. But it is important that we take the comprehensive view of scope 1, scope 2, and also scope 3 emissions, and therefore look at the essential indicators as well as leadership indicators in a comprehensive manner. The responsibility remains the same. Degree of responsibility, degree of transparency that the industry needs to maintain is the same. Now, how do we do that? Having recognized the challenge, the real challenge is to find solutions to that problem. And that is why we are here today, to look at the possible solutions. We have experts here which will guide you through those issues. But for the ease of reference, let me flag 3 issues. One is the business of transporting the products, which is involved in e-commerce. Apart from the digital operations that are carried out, you actually, when you do the physical delivery, you engage all kinds of transport, the modes of different kinds of transport. So what is it that we can do in terms of contributing to reduction of scope 3 emissions in the transport sector, which are attributable to e-commerce business? Obviously, we can talk about electric mobility, and most importantly, the electric mobility of the transport, which is business oriented. So 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, light motor vehicles. Leave aside the residential part, but the commercial transport, which is actually engaged for operations of this kind, they are at different levels, and their propensity to decarbonize is different. So we have to look at the constraints from the growth in the services sector, and look at the possible areas of immediate intervention and long-term intervention. Why immediate and long-term? In the immediate, the reason is, in the immediate time frame, we have NDC, and in the long term, we have what is called LEDS now. You must have heard that the last climate conference the government of India released its long-term low emission development strategy document, which is called LT-LEDS. Now, low emission development strategy is a long-term strategy. Till 2070, we are expected to decarbonize the entire economy by 2070. But that is, obviously the world cannot wait till 2070. India certainly can do much more than that. And that is why we have an immediate time frame, which is 2030 nationally determined contributions. You will find that in the 2030 time frame, we have not indicated any specific target for decarbonization. It is only in terms of energy intensity and emissions intensity. But in the long term, we have a goal of decarbonization. So that is the reason why we need to understand what is it that the transport sector can do both in the short term and in the long term towards decarbonization. I'm sure the experts will talk about it. Electric mobility is one. Different kinds of fuel mix is another, which is not just confined to transport, but other sections of industry as well. But alternative fuel and changing the fuel mix in a way that it becomes more environment friendly, less carbon emission intensive is certainly another need of the hour. To what extent the government policies can help the transport industry move in that direction, whether we need more subsidies or whether we need more incentives or more scaling up operations in form of sustainable procurement practices is something which you may like to discuss. The second issue was in terms of the packaging. After all, the goods that we produce, we package them and then deliver to the final consumer. So we consume resources and we emit emissions in the process there also. So that is another area of intervention, both in the short term and in the long term. Now, packaging is a growing industry, and it's an industry which is a sunrise. I mean, I was part of the Ministry of Commerce, and I was looking after an institute of packaging, which is based in Mumbai. And they used to tell me that this is one sector where the demand will never go down. This demand will keep on growing. There are sectors where the demand might come down, but this is a sector where the packaging industry will continue to grow worldwide. As the consumers' aspirations grow, their lifestyle changes, the packaging increases. So we need to be sensitive to the environmental impact of the packaging industry, which is contributed by the growth in the services sector. How is it that we can make it less resource intensive, more environment friendly? What are the different solutions which are possible? In the second session, you will be discussing that. I'll only leave you with one thought there, that apart from the fact that we need to be more resource conscious and more resource efficient so that we improve the circularity of the economy, we also need to look at the product designs, make it more modular so that it is possible to dismantle them and realign them and reuse them, recycle them in a much more resource efficient manner. Last but not the least, I'll also request you to look at the logistics of the whole operations. And here, what I mean is that the comprehensiveness of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, we need not look at only one segment of the operation, but the entire chain of supply. And it is only through business disclosure, greater business responsibility, that this kind of environmental consciousness in the supply chain can be introduced. If the buyer, the corporate sector sitting at the head of the supply chain, if they enforce a particular environmental norm, the entire supply chain will be bound to follow that. And it is then only that we will be able to reduce the scope 3 emissions finally. So I'll leave you with these thoughts, and I look forward to an interesting and enriching discussion with the help of the experts present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insightful thoughts, sir. Now we will move on to the keynote address, but unfortunately, Mr. Narishpal Gangar won't be able to join the event due to PMO's meeting. So we'll be moving on with the context setting. For context setting, I would like to welcome Ms. Shubhra Jain, who is part of the public policy team at Amazon and looks after the policy issues pertaining to sustainability. She has extensive experience on urban development and sustainability issues, having worked with government stakeholders in India as well as international donor ecosystem. Ms. Jane.
Thank you, Veena. And thank you, Mr. Rashmi, for actually setting quite a bit of the context. I just want to pick up some of the, key elements that you brought out and just build on that a little bit. So first, you talked about responsibility. And I think you see Amazon here today partnering with TERI to really talk about overall decarbonization for e-commerce because of that sense of responsibility. We actually have a tenet that guides us in our work, that success and scale brings broad responsibility, and the actions and our commitments and this whole dialogue that we are trying to create really stems from there. Some of you may have been there in the plenary that we had this morning, but for the benefit, and I know, sir, that, to also just reinforce for you, Amazon co-founded something called the Climate Pledge in 2019, which today stands at about 400 signatories globally, including some of the, really well-renowned and responsible companies from within India. Some of the Tata Group, HCL, some of those companies are also part of that. And what it commits to doing and what it commits Amazon to achieve is become net zero carbon across our operations, including what you spoke about, Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3, become net zero carbon by 2040. That is the commitment that we have laid out for ourselves. And that, of course, needs to happen across multiple levers. Again, Mr. Rashmi, you brought out some of those key pillars that need action on, whether that is on transportation and finding more sustainable zero emission modes of transportation, whether that is looking at more sustainable and alternate packaging materials for our use, moving away from plastics, whether that is our buildings that form a big chunk of what we move. And that actually brings me to another point that you made about the impact on carbon emissions from the services sector. And while it is a services industry that we're talking about, it has very direct connects with some of the goods and service, some of the products and the goods that we produce. So when I talk about buildings, there is a heavy reliance on the materials that go into those buildings. And some of those actually fall within the hard to abate sector. So whether that is talking about steel, cement, everything that goes into the physical infrastructure, that is also something that we have, that we necessarily rely on. That becomes a very important part for us to focus on. Some of the other levers would also revolve around using clean energy. And Amazon, again, in the morning's plenary, we had our director who leads supply chain for India talk about Amazon having recently become the largest corporate buyer for renewable energy across the world. But I've been talking a lot about Amazon. What we are talking here today, however, is about e-commerce decarbonization. And we recognize that while I hope for everyone present here, Amazon is synonymous, and I'm hoping the first name that comes to mind when we say e-commerce, but we are one part of the ecosystem. And that brings me to the third part that you mentioned, Mr. Rashmi, which is about supply chain, which is about Scope 3 and the impact and the opportunity that lies, not just for us to work on our own direct emissions and direct footprint, but really work in making sure that there is an ecosystem that allows the overall transition for the economy. And we work with many small and medium businesses who either sell on our platforms or are service providers for us, vendors for different services, whether those are packaging solutions, whether those are transport solutions, multiple such solutions. And our intent really is to work, be a partner with the government when we're talking about India's commitments on NDCs, the long-term low emission development strategy that has been laid out, to be able to have this ecosystem that allows overall transition and then also, of course, allows us to take actions on the commitments that we have made. So I am very excited, and I'll also take this opportunity to welcome everyone, and I'm looking forward to the discussion that we will have on how can we move the needle on e-commerce decarbonization. Thank you. Thank you, Veena.
Thank you, Ms. G. Now we will move on to our first session on freight decarbonization, last mile and middle mile transportation. Today we have here Mr. Sudhendu Sinha, Advisor in Infrastructure Connectivity, Transport and Electric Mobility, NITI Aayog. Mr. Sinha has an experience of over 29 years in operations, infrastructure planning, coordination and management at field and policy making levels in Indian Railways, with considerable success and appreciation. His performance has been recognized and awarded twice at the national level and thrice at the ministry level. He also has served as the Dean of the Indian Railway Institute of Transport Management, Lucknow, and General Manager at the Web Application of Center for Railway Information Systems. He has training and enrichment from Japan, Singapore, Germany, and US. I welcome you, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you for such a liberal introduction, and of course to Mr. Rashmi for setting the context so well. Amazon lady, the way she said, and of course Mr. Rao, who has always been into it. At NITI Aayog, you see, there is a national mission on transformative mobility and battery storage. We are supposed to be driving this, that is the mandate, driving this electric mobility forward. And the good thing is that there has been a lot of satisfaction. There has been a lot of achievements to kind of on which the entire world sings for. But probably the challenge still continues in a number of areas. So let me rather accept that this particular stream of decarbonizing, that is decarbonizing the gig economy portion, that there we have been relatively late. But still, it is barely, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years kind of thing that we have given a very, very focused kind of attention in this area. And this has proved its results. So on 15th of September 2021, we launched a campaign called Shuni campaign. That was, of course, we were driving it, but it was supposed to be industry-led. All the industry partners, those who are into this particular space, we invited them to be together. And today, almost 146 industry players, you name it, and they are there. They are the ones who are basically involved in this space of e-commerce. And what we did was, the strategy was very simple, that rather than giving a mandate that go for this transition or that, we rather ask them that you say that within what time period, how many vehicle or in which area you would be able to go in for complete electric, that is to say a zero pollution delivery kind of campaign, zero pollution delivery kind of position could be there. So of course we started with a lot of initial inhibitions were there, and they also didn't know how to go about it. But the good thing is that as we grew ahead, the kind of commitment that was coming, that was gradually becoming more and more ambitious. And the still better part was that almost all of them were living up to the commitment that they were making. So that is something amazing. So nobody came with the kind of excuse that, okay, I said so many vehicles, so I have slipped. All of them, many of them rather overperformed their commitment. So the Shuni campaign is a really, this is one major success where we have achieved. And if I recollect rightly, in a time span of some 1 year, less than that, almost 20 million deliveries took place only on electric rides. Similarly, for the ride hailers, also for this Uber, Ola, all these Evera, Blue Smart kind of thing, they also performed some 30 million rides. They were also on clean mobility. So this is what the achievement is. And as we are progressing ahead, there are two trends that I am watching. More and more industry players, they are getting into the stream. And of course, with all the more so aggressive kind of commitments. And we are also gradually understanding that there are certain specific problems. Some of them are very, very specific to a particular industry. For example, the day before yesterday, in one of the country partnership with US and UK, when we were discussing, IKEA came with the kind of challenge that they said that the kind of vehicle that they want is not available. Precisely, it was not the vehicle, it was the body, because, they have to transport things where the packaging, they have, of course, they have standardized it into pallets and kind of things. But still, that is not, that was the challenge which they mentioned. Some of them did mention about the charging infrastructure, where exactly it should be installed, what should be the challenges associated with that. Some of them did talk about that probably it needs some amount of extra money, maybe there's some sort of delivery charge or clean delivery charge can be imposed upon. A lot of ideas were there. And of course, on the other hand, I had states with me, and the states, some of the states, including Delhi state, they said that they are going to mandate in so many clear words that within a particular time period ahead, each and every of those who are into this end-mile delivery, this e-commerce business, a specific percentage of fleet has to be green fleet, it has to be clean fleet. And taking cue from them, number of other states also, they're also going ahead on the same direction, that now they are going to mandate it. But of course, I do support that before we go in for such a stringent mandate, we must ensure that the enabling infrastructure is set up and to their satisfaction, so that there are no hitch and there are no unnecessary resistance and unnecessary challenges in the implementation. So that is what we are. And I'm sure that most of you must have seen that particular ad video of Shuni campaign. That is barely 2 minutes video. But I have personally watched that video at least 50 times, just to identify that what is there in this particular clip, so that 28 million hits we got in a time span of 6 months. So in the morning today, when Nat Geo was with me, National Geographic, I was conversing with them that on different diverse aspects of electric mobility, and of course, on the diverse aspect of this e-commerce, can they create clips like that? So they were trying to understand it. So I said, how it can be done, that is not what I know, that is not my skill. What I can tell you is that what is the impact that I perceive that it should have. But that is what in that direction, and the response was very positive. So maybe they start working on it, and in a time span of say 4 to 6 months, they should be able to pull it off. And at least the awareness thing should be there, because it is not a one direction approach alone, where the industry is gradually changing. It must keep on getting that accelerated kind of inspiration, support, encouragement from the buyers also. So if the buyers start insisting that could it be possible to give us a delivery on clean vehicle, so then the idea, that starts snowballing. So if I might say that in many of your order forms, if you can also create this particular area that if the person wants to have it on clean mobility, it may not, I'm not saying that you do it, but the very fact that you mention it every time when he is doing that order, that idea comes to his mind that that option is also available. And gradually with the passage of time, you should be able to make to it. So this can be one idea. And good thing is that all the big ones, Amazon, Flipkart, IKEA, Zomato, Zip, Swiggy, all of them are getting into it. This particular space will keep on increasing. As you see, last 2.5 years, the kind of products that have been brought into it, the number of industry players that have gone into it, and the short time margin that is what they are committed to. So this is what the space will continue to grow. And if it grows into green, clean mobility, I always say that for the e-commerce people, their vehicles, their delivery systems, that acts as an ambassador, as a moving thing in a metro space. Everybody can see it. So that would have a lot of impact on encouraging people to go for clean mobility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing the key messages. We'll now move on to the panel discussions. I request Mr. Rishmi and Mr. Sinha to join the audience and the speakers of the first session to join the dais. Our first session will focus on freight decarbonization, and we will discuss how we can reduce the carbon footprint of logistics and the critical role that e-commerce companies can play in achieving this goal. For this session, we are delighted to have an exceptional line of speakers who will share their experience and insights on the topic. Today, we have Mr. Ivy Rao, who will be moderating the first session. Mr. Rao is a visiting senior fellow in Center for Sustainable Mobility at TERI. He is currently working on studies on National Transport Decarbonization Council for future sustainable mobility. In an accomplished career at Maruti Suzuki spanning 36 years, made significant contribution in different roles in the areas of technology transfer, new product planning and development, component localization, quality assurance, and services. We welcome you, Mr. Rao. I suggest you can start the session, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. In the morning, actually, we had a session about zero emission vehicles for heavy duty transportation. There we had expert panel who tried to discuss and debate various aspects of how we can promote electrification of heavy duty vehicles. I mean, it came out that there are a lot of some loose ends which need to be plugged to make this happen. Here we are planning to discuss the electrification of e-commerce transportation requirements, and also in the separate session we'll be discussing about how to reduce carbon footprint of packaging and other requirements for e-commerce. We actually, when I look at any package which comes delivered through Amazon or any other e-commerce service providers, I somehow feel that there's a lot of material which is being consumed for packing than the actual material which is being delivered. And it reminds me of my days in Maruti, initial days when Maruti used to import CKD kits from Japan based on the localization in that particular month. And Suzuki used to deploy the special experts for packaging to optimize the packing of CKD kits every month based on the what parts are getting eliminated in that particular month's imports. I mean, especially if a voluminous part gets localized, then the total requirement of space for packing is very different, and they used to optimize every month based on the localization plan of Maruti, and that's the way they actually reduce costs. And I think there is a lot to be done by our service providers like Amazon and others. I'm sorry, it's my observation, which I feel every day. We have a expert panel with us for discussing this particular subject. I will briefly introduce the panel speakers to you. We have Mr. Jaspreet Khurana, lead moving in emerging markets World Economic Forum. Jaspreet is a sustainable transport and energy transitions professional with 14 years of experience across non-profits, consulting, and entrepreneurship. At the World Economic Forum, Jaspreet leads the Moving Emerging Markets Initiative. Moving Emerging Markets Initiative aims to accelerate global automotive industry decarbonization by addressing regional inequalities. We have with us Mr. P. Sanjeev, Head and Vice President, EV Micro Mobility, TVS Motors. Sanjeev currently heads the EV entry segments for TVS Motor. He has an entrepreneurial approach and has successful business turnaround expertise in both fast-paced consumer electronics business and EV automotive business. He has a wide bandwidth of business leadership experience, planning from Fortune top 100 global MNCs, as well as building EV automotive startups from zero to profitable growth. His role involves developing and accelerating EV adoption and harnessing it further through strong strategic direction for the overall business. We have with us Ms. Subhra Jain, Public Policy Manager, Amazon India. Subhra is a part of public policy team at Amazon and looks after policy issues pertaining to sustainability for India. Prior to joining Amazon, Subhra worked with ESG platforms at PwC. She has extensive experience on urban development and sustainability issues, having worked with government stakeholders in India as well as international donor ecosystem, including World Bank and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have Mr. Abhay Shekhar, CEO, Kazam. Akshay is building an e-mobility operating software for fleets, fuel operators, and utilities, where the vehicle and its peripherals like charging stations and swapping stations are connected to cloud to allow operations, insights, and analytics. This organization is a 80 plus member team managing 10,000 devices and 30,000 drivers under its platform. Lastly, we have Ms. Chetna Nagpal, Senior Associate RMI. Chetna is a Senior Associate at RMI India, focusing on sustainable transportation and its role in combating climate change. She is currently supporting the Sunya Zero Pollution Mobility Campaign and public and private sector stakeholders in driving their electric mobility transition. She works on fast-tracking the transition to zero-emission vehicles in freight and passenger transport. Before RMA India, Chetna was working with Shakti Sustainable Energy Foundation, where she supported the electric mobility initiative. As I mentioned, in the morning session, we were focusing on only heavy-duty vehicle electrification, whereas based on the e-commerce requirements, I'm sure in this session we have to cover most of the segments of automobile industry. Let's start with our customer. That is, would like Amazon to explain what are they looking for in terms of their transportation needs.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Is
Yeah.
that, yeah, I'm audible. Thank you. And I'll get to the question that you are posing on the sustainable transportation specific solutions. But before that, since you did mention as a consumer, your concerns around packaging and use of that, just while we will have a much more detailed session focused on packaging and issues around that, and I'll have my colleague who really leads a lot of that work for Amazon talk about specific challenges. I just want to emphasize that as an organization, the concern of our consumers in this area is definitely something we recognize, and there is a lot of effort that is going in at the back end, supported by machine learning AI, to constantly reduce and wherever possible eliminate and move to alternative solutions. But we recognize that there is more that we can do and more that needs to be done, and we're definitely taking steps there. So thank you for bringing that up also. But when we talk of transportation, sustainable transportation, we are an organization that relies on, so we are a consumer, we are a user of fleet services and transportation services and logistics services. And we rely on that to be able to move our goods across the country, across all parts of the country, and be able to deliver on the customer promises. And so the development of the ecosystem and availability of fleets, availability of these electric vehicles and zero emission vehicles increasingly is something that becomes very relevant for us, because our ability to use them and onboard them as part of our fleet depends on uptake by our users, right? And so when we look at the availability of fleets, there are really three key parts that we are trying to solve for. And this is, based on our interactions with our service providers, the delivery partners. And this I will break down into two parts: the last mile, which is everything that we, all the solutions that, move the package, the last mile of the transportation to get the packages to consumers, and then the middle mile and the long haul transport, which is a very different segment. And breaking that down really is necessary because the maturity of the ecosystem in both of those segments, availability of solutions, availability of viable, commercially viable and scalable solutions, and also the needs of the ecosystem, whether that is infrastructure, whether that is the kind of charging ecosystem that is needed. All of those things are very different. So when we talk about last mile, actually, even before we start talking about last mile and middle mile, I think one, we have a very, I spoke about the climate pledge that we, that really guides us. That's the North Star for us for 2040 net zero carbon. But we, of course, work backwards from there to set intermittent targets for ourselves and work towards those. Shri Sitendra sir mentioned the Shunya campaign that that was initiated by Niti, and we are proud partners in that Shunya campaign. And in India, we are committed to having 10,000 electric vehicles be part of our fleet by 2025. And we are very happy to report that we are on track to definitely get there and possibly even exceed that number that we have set for ourselves. But a lot of that adoption we are seeing is in the last mile category. Given the availability of electric two-wheelers, electric three-wheelers, and the smaller four-wheeler commercial vehicles. And also here, the role that some of the seminal policies of the government of India, such as FAME, the FAME 2 scheme that currently is in play, has played in nudging in developing the ecosystem. Also the role that the individual state EV policies, I think we are at 28 states that have rolled out policies and 26 have adopted EV policies. But that number keeps changing. I think Punjab just came out yesterday. And so there is a lot of action, which again supports both the demand side, nudging consumer behavior and therefore creating demand for it, individual consumers, and also the supply side, making sure that there is charging infrastructure, that is all of that is needed. So while we've, to some extent solved for that issue for the last mile delivery, the smaller vehicle category, I think that is the support so that we are seeking also on the medium and heavy duty trucking space, because while prototypes exist in that space, we have Indian OEMs today, Ashok Leyland and our even Tata Motors. So there are multiple segments and multiple prototypes that exist. Getting them to commercial viability and getting them to a point where they can become part of fleets and become scalable solutions to really be able to create impact. That is what is needed. I think the kind of support that we saw under FAME for this category of vehicles, this is something that is we will definitely needed. That will definitely nudge the development of this entire medium and heavy duty trucking. The second piece really is the charging infrastructure, and I think again, while we are focused on having whether that is public charging, and there has been a lot of work again from the government on enabling easing the permits on domestic consumers getting access to charging points. I think the medium and heavy duty space will again require a relook and a complete focus on how this will need to happen, because the needs, the logistics sector and the long haul transportation, having trucks sitting, it requires fast charging, because having trucks not in operation for long periods of time will impact the financial viability of these models. And therefore, the focus on fast charging infrastructure. And again, here again, we have solutions that exist globally and solutions that exist, prototypes of those that exist in India, but again, support signaling from the government to make sure that these become viable. And the last piece I will touch upon again very briefly is on financing. And here again, I know Niti Aayog has been instrumental in working on a risk sharing program with World Bank and SIDBI for the two-wheeler and three-wheeler vehicle categories. And I think that is going to be absolutely critical in improving access and reducing the total cost of ownership for these vehicles. But we also see similar needs are in the medium and heavy duty trucking, which will benefit from the attention to reducing the cost of financing. So those are really key issues we are trying to solve for our partners so that we have access to fleets.
Thank you. You explained well, the various transportation needs you have. I just wanted to check what is your target for achieving maybe 100% electric transportation, and what are the main constraints you see in that, achieving that?
So, as I said, we are looking at an overall level when I say becoming net zero carbon by 2040. That is the overall objective, the overall goal that we are trying to work towards. And that will require us to address our direct emissions, which is on account of all the electricity that we purchase and all the energy that we use, but also on account of the third party in our supply chain. And there, so that is the goal we are working towards. There are, goalposts that we have again set, but a lot of that is dependent, and our ability to make progress is dependent on the development of the overall ecosystem. And that is why you see, a forum such as this, also the need to enter into partnerships, because this is something that we recognize is not an issue we can solve as an individual organization, and the need therefore to work with multiple partners across the entire value chain of electric vehicles. And that is what we are working towards. And as I mentioned, as a target that we are trying to achieve, the first goalpost that we want to get towards is making sure that we have 10,000 electric vehicles by 2025. And then, of course, hopefully be able to nudge the availability of these medium and heavy duty vehicles also.
What is the size of your fleet right now?
It really, so that's a number that really gets impacted depending demand, and which fluctuates. So I would not be in a position to have a specific number of.
No, I just want to understand this 10,000 means what percent of your total?
I really would not have that, because again, like I said, the size of that will depend on the external business demand that we see also. So that specific number, I would not be in a position to have.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would now turn to Ms. Chetna Nagpal from RMI. I would like her to give us some image of what are the practices in other countries, followed by these service providers.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I think a lot of what I wanted to share has already been covered, especially the challenges that the e-commerce industry is facing in terms of policies or in terms of charging infrastructure. I think what we've seen so far is that in light duty vehicles, in light commercial vehicles, the policy support has been instrumental in increase in demand, especially for 2 and 3 wheelers. What we haven't seen so far is the same kind of policy support for medium and heavy duty vehicles, which is there in other countries. So maybe that's an area where we need to focus on, probably in the next phase of the FAME, if there is one. We need incentives for medium and heavy duty vehicles. Secondly, I wanted to iterate on one point. I think we've seen that in light vehicles in India, the demand side strategies have played a key role. What we didn't see was probably the supply side push. We had the carrot, but not the stick, which will be essential in the medium and heavy duty vehicles. And the policies such as advanced clean truck rules that California has, which mandates the OEMs to increase their share of electric trucks every year. I think something of that kind is probably needed in India to be able to push OEMs to manufacture and start manufacturing medium and heavy duty trucks. Secondly, last week only, European Union, they released their corporate average fuel economy norms for medium and heavy duty vehicles. We also need to tighten our norms and introduce CAFE norms for medium and heavy duty vehicles. That's another learning that we can draw from other countries. Of the top 3 countries or regions that are seeing the maximum demand in medium and heavy duty electric trucks, European Union, China, and America, they have introduced several supply side policies, which India can also learn. Lastly, I think great incentives are being offered in China, and we are seeing rapid adoption in especially battery swappable trucks for port operations. So maybe that's another thing that we can learn from different nations across the globe.
Yeah, I also wanted your feedback about how the service providers are operating in other countries like US. You have any idea?
Yes, I think likes of Amazon and
maybe
IKEA, they are the front runners that are adopting electric trucks across the globe. So maybe I would say that Amazon may have more to share on that.
Yeah. Maybe you can talk about that. How is it in US and Europe?
So I will, maybe I can touch upon just a few elements. I mean, what I'll say is that this is an area that we are trying to find a solution for globally, not just in India. And I think the issue of medium and heavy duty trucks, and one is, of course, having battery electric vehicles in that segment, but also what will be the role of, for example, green hydrogen based fuel cell EVs, green hydrogen ice. There are a lot of innovations that are being tested out, a lot of different business models that are being tested out, and similar to what we're trying to do in India, find the best solution while being technology agnostic, really, where we can move in the quickest possible manner most of our fleet. I think some of the gathering present here may have heard about the Rivian electric vehicles that really look at the last mile delivery in some of the North American regions. But really, this is an area that we are trying to find solutions for. There are no ready, easy answers. And I think we're all trying to learn from what is working in different regions and find a solution.
I would now like to request Mr. P. Sanjeev, Head of Product Planning from TVS Motors, to give us some image of what's happening with the OEMs. I'm sure you'll be able to talk about TVS, but if you can give us some idea about what others are doing, that would be beneficial.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Rao. Not business planning, but EV.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So I heard a lot of dates. So I just wanted to quickly also just remind ourselves what I saw about a decade ago. This was announced in Geneva by WWF, warning that by 2050, at the rate at which we are exploiting resources, we would need 3 planets for the survival of planet Earth. So it's no more just a date, and I just realized that I will be alive by then. So coming back to the topic of today, a lot has been spoken about mid-mile and long haul, important problems to solve. But it looks like there's no concerns on the last mile. But I know that the last mile is getting a very important piece to solve because I think many of us know 60% of the petrol consumption is two-wheelers. B, we also know that the trend is, I'm looking at some dates like 2030, which is not too far away, less than a decade, 60% of the Indian population moving into metros and tier 1 cities. I was this morning talking to one of the leading food delivery and quick commerce partners, who was also reminding me that out of several lakhs of delivery partners, just 7 cities contributes to 30% of their entire delivery partners, just 7 out of 1,000. 7 out of 1,000 contributes to 30% of the delivery partners. So it's a very, very serious problem, which means people are going to flock for delivery, and also great job done by Amazon and the rest. E-commerce is tending to go to almost $140 billion by 2025, just 2 years from now. So which means all of us are used to shopping plus quick commerce, food delivery, even oil or salt, everything is just coming home. So solving last mile mobility is very important. And to add to what Mr. Rao said, while the government, of course, Shunya program, Niti Aayog, all have done fantastic work in creating, I would say, first the awareness. There's no problem of awareness. I think people now know about two-wheelers and electric mobility. People like us have got more serious than we ever were. As you can see, our growth, it's in the public. It was earlier driven by emerging startups, but now players like us are already in the top 2. And we are expecting to lead that program. We have created a complete EV organization, and we've put focus onto affordable solutions. And we're also building up specific products for delivery. That's the big thing. We are working on, we've understood the duty cycles. We've understood all the terminologies used by e-commerce, UFF, DSPs, EDSPs. We're working with charging ecosystem partners to truly create a situation that there's no a bottleneck for adoption of EV in last mile mobility. That's the reason why we did not hear both of them speak too much about it, but a lot to do. Only two topics there. One is it is very important to accelerate, of course, the effort that's going on with World Bank and as you rightly said, SIDBI, to bring in the financing, because the users or the delivery partners, they truly need financing as a solution. If we don't enable that, we won't be able to enable them to buy these products. After they buy it, it's magic, because it's 20 paise a kilometer versus 2.5 rupees. And maintenance costs are very, very low. So it's going to be brilliant in the long run, but for them to be able to buy, we need to bring in financing solutions. And of course, we're working a lot on charging.
Good to know that the TVS is working on specific products for material delivery. And also, you have mentioned the initial cost as one of the major issues for the operators to purchase an electric vehicle. Do you think retrofitment is a solution?
Retrofit is definitely one of the solutions is already being done by people. But apart from just retrofit, because of the various other aspects that are going into it, the safety concerns overall, adoption of the AIS for battery and BMS, etc. The vehicle as a whole needs to be able to talk to various components, the controller, the motor, the battery. So, and also the vehicle needs to be designed for being very efficient. The existing vehicles are obviously higher on weight, was not designed for being electric. Apart from trying to solve for costs, another very critical aspect in this entire EV business is what are per kilometer. We cannot endlessly depend on FAME. We have to bring in energy efficient vehicles. And for that, we have to build EV vehicles meant to be EV. So I would not peg retrofit as the A solution, but it is one of the solutions for a quick adoption. But that's also not going to bring the cost down as such, because you will not enjoy the subsidies and various other support. But I mean, I would also like to add to what Subra mentioned. States like Tamil Nadu has come up with specific commercial mobility related subsidies. Those are very encouraging. So we definitely need to do a lot in that aspect of adoption.
Oh, I agree with you when you said retrofitment has to be done properly, because I'm aware of some startups who have developed retrofit kits for especially three-wheelers, and they're also trying to integrate, all the information about how the battery is performing, etc., to take care of the customer requirements. But my point is, if we have to increase the percentage of electric vehicles in the field, there are two options. One, you scrap all old vehicles as soon as possible. Or other alternative is convert the IC vehicles into electric vehicles. And it comes with some issues and also some gaps which needs to be plugged actually. And I think the government intervention also is required to actually facilitate this particular aspect of conversion of IC vehicles into electric. That's a totally different topic which we can discuss later. I would now request Mr. Akshay Shekhar to give us some inputs about charging infrastructure and how they are actually catering for this requirement.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And what I realized when I was actually sitting here was that most of the people in the dais are my customers. And I was very happy to see that. This ecosystem is growing so well, and it cannot be built by one person, right? And especially in the charging ecosystem, you need to have partners, because we are a peripheral service, which is basically ensuring that this system is going to move in the next direction, and it is going to be having that impetus to grow. So some key parameters that have actually come up as we started building charging infrastructure for the country. We realized that we need to have some form of digitization in the utility segment, because the new age fuel is no longer oil, right? It is the electricity in itself, and nobody is really talking today about how do we take care of the new oil or the new fuel that is going to come in. So a lot of work, I feel, especially for a charging infra play, because for EV to come up, there is a chicken and egg story, right? There is now finally vehicles that everybody is talking about and happy to adopt. But if the infrastructure does not catch up, then there is a high possibility that this will again pull it down, right? And to solve for that, we need to go to the core problem. And the core problem is, how do I get electricity to even get things moving? So I think a lot of digitization opportunities I would request from the utility stand of things, if possible, especially knowing how much electricity is available at every consumer account level, how much, at a substation level, so that we can go and approve and get these electricity in itself at every location, right? The other thing that I have also realized is, I have been doing this for almost 2 odd years, but it takes me 6 months to get a new connection and a new load sanction in the country. Okay. And just imagine how much more difficult it will be if people are putting 10,000 vehicles every month, right? And that's going to grow faster and faster. A mechanism to somehow bureaucratically, remove the bureaucracy in this system, make it available for us to see in which stages of the application we are actually stuck in. This is just one part of, when we go into the e-charging ecosystem, how do we look at the electricity standpoint? But when we move ahead, I think just the way the government has done very well in terms of FAME, right? It gave in 2 tranches of subsidies, and the vehicle OEMs, which were private in nature, could register themselves and push these vehicles very easily, which gave in something called as a total cost of ownership. Today, I adopt to an EV because, not just that I'm able to contribute to the society in terms of decarbonization, but the cost effectiveness, as he said, is 20 paisa as compared to 2.5 rupees, right? And that brings down my total cost of ownership significantly low. But as an infra player, there is a small bit of it available, but there are no private players who can apply to it with some certain set of performance criteria. If we as private players are able to apply directly, we will be able to again run in the chicken egg story and be much higher in the play, right? That's the second piece that I think, in the charging infra play, that is actually needed for players for us to be successful. And the last piece that I actually want to talk about is, India, the good thing about India is we always skip steps in technology. Everything, right? You go 20 years back or 10 years back or even 5 years back, and we can do that in the charging infra play if we are able to skip stones like what happened in the Europe. Today, every European house is getting replaced with a new smart charging device. And that is because they have an energy crisis. Now, 20-30% of all the vehicles that are being bought are electric vehicles, because we've all pushed that, right, in the market. But that creates something called as peak loads. You, me, every one of you will go back home at 6, 7 in the evening, plug our vehicles in. And when we do that, it creates peak loads, right? And our vehicle today, a 4-wheeler, for instance, will be almost 30 times the house load that you would take. So it is like 30 times load at a single instant of 6 o'clock in the evening. Imagine I can push that to charge at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or even till 6 a.m. in the morning. And that capability is what smart infrastructure players like us can bring onto the table with our software technology. And we do that not just, we're already doing this. It's not a thing that I'm talking about in the future. We do this for our partners. It could be even Amazon and Big Basket and any of these e-commerce players who have been the first adopters in this space, right? And we can avoid this, recapital of putting these and changing these capital by adopting a smart charging ecosystem right from day one. It will help not just for the parameters that we spoke about, having faster charging at places, because we'll be able to know whether loads are available or not. It can even help in financing, because the data in itself will give me a lot more idea about how do I create financing modules for banks to give up these data on looking at how is the longevity of these vehicles, the battery performances, the battery health, etc., or to even create insurance programs in and around it. So a smart device and a connected charging ecosystem is the world of future. And especially when we are moving from, when we moved from feature phones to smartphones all this while in the last 20 years, I think we should learn from that story, right? And we can make smartphones viable in the EV ecosystem very fast.
Thank you. Thanks for giving all details about charging issues and how you are helping to optimize the loads for charging through your smart charging systems. I just wanted to check with you. How do you react to the battery swapping systems which is being offered by some manufacturers?
See, charging infrastructure for me is a battery also needs to get charged, right? It's just that it is getting charged separately beforehand. So it falls under the same gamut of creating a fueling infrastructure. We already work with one of the largest battery swapping companies in the country and give them technology on the background, because they are nothing but cumulative load of multiple batteries together at one place, and which are getting charged at the end of the day. So battery swapping is not a threat. Rather, I feel that it is again one of the skipping stones that you have in the adoption to EV. Just right now, I think an hour back when I was talking to someone on this dais, I told them that, with this phone 10, 15 years back, I used to swap batteries on my Nokia days. And today, none of your batteries get swapped, right? And there is a reason for it, because you're able to charge in 15, 20 minutes. The range of this battery has increased, which will work me full whole day. And with technology coming in and the data that has come through this, and also increase in the better chemistry of this battery in itself, has allowed all of this thing to happen. And I think battery swapping in itself is one of the skipping stones for us. Whether it is even heavy duty vehicles that come in the future, there are ways for us to charge and take care of this. Mr. Rao, I also wanted to add one more aspect that you were asking what is happening in the US market, what's happening in the Europe market. So Kazam is not a technology company which only works in India. We have clients outside India, and I can give you a lot more idea on this, right? So if you look at when I talk to you about an EV today, right, or maybe a couple of months back, if I would have asked you, the first thing that would have come to your mind was a Tesla, right? And that is because if you look at the outside of India market, the passenger vehicle, four-wheeler, was the one which was the most adopted. India is actually building the cargo fleet segment category and in the EV space. It is now that the US is ready with a Rivian, a GM coming with a vehicle in the cargo space, a Ford ready with it. 2023 is going to be the day where they're actually going to build this last mile delivery majorly in the world. And it has always been a four-wheeler first dominant passenger vehicle. And that's why I spoke about home charging being, automated into a smart device now, because that is what was adopted. But India is very different. Rather, we have learned the fleet and the logistics business much better in terms of EV adoption than the passenger vehicle. Passenger vehicle is now picking up. If you ask any of the OEMs, I think their maximum demand would be, catering to these B2B players who have already placed a lot of vehicles to be used for deliveries on the last mile, because the total cost of ownership has already reached in that segment. And hence it makes so much sense for them to convert each and every delivery on electric. So that is what is happening outside of India.
Thank you. Now I request Jasmeet Khurana from World Economic Forum to give us, I request him to comment about based on his exposure to overseas markets, how how the service providers are adopting or already adopted electric mobility for transport of delivery goods, and also general view of how electrification of the goods carriers is happening in other countries.
Sure. So I have exposure to several emerging markets outside of China. So I've looked at Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, South and East Africa. So based on just my understanding of these markets, first of all, I would say that India is actually a leader when it comes to policy. So for example, Indonesia is today where India was maybe 3 or 4 years back, right? And many other countries are not even there yet. So in that sense, and thanks to the effort and leadership by Niti Aayog, which took a lot of initiative to push these policies forward. So India is actually at the forefront of this. In Indonesia, we are still talking about 100 buses in Jakarta by this year, or a new incentive policy for two-wheelers, which is just about to kick in. It has not yet kicked. There was no policy for incentivizing, 2 and 3-wheelers. 3-wheelers is a very small market there, but two-wheelers. So in that sense, India is taking a leadership role. Now, the competition there is, on the ICE side, of course, most of these markets are mostly kind of, led by the Japanese and Korean companies. But for EVs, the main competition is between India and China, right? And I see so much opportunity in these countries for Indian OEMs, which of course are quite dominant in several markets on the ICE side, to come in and play that role. On fleets, again, the kind of experience and scale that exists in India is very, very relevant to these markets and how they will play out. So one of the points that I wanted to highlight, how Indian market is developing and what's the future going forward and what that means for emerging markets as well, is there are two divergences that are happening from what used to exist with ICs, with these 2 and 3-wheeler fleets, versus what exists today. And that has an implication for what happens in the future. First divergence is when you order something at home, if it is coming through an ICE vehicle, most likely that vehicle is owned by the person who's bringing that product to your home, versus EVs, where most likely that product is not owned by that person who's bringing that vehicle to your home. It's owned by some aggregator somewhere who's kind of either leasing it on a per day basis or whatever basis. That's one big divergence which is happening. The second big divergence is on the product, and you were mentioning a separate product for e-commerce. You didn't have that for petrol vehicles, right? So the market for products has, at least for two-wheelers, it has completely split into. One is a personal two-wheeler market and one is a fleet two-wheeler market, and these are two different products. And
this is also because the service providers requirement has come up recently. It's not that it was there in IC vehicles.
Most of the fleet market is still petrol, right?
Both electrification of mobility and these requirements of
sure. But these are two
together.
Yeah, so these are two big divergences, and they are related to essentially finance. So who owns these vehicles?
Yeah.
So do we going forward converge and go back to personal vehicle ownership, as well as who owns this vehicle? And that's relevant for 2, 3-wheelers, that's relevant for trucks, that are relevant for everything. So we need to think about where this market is going, and policy needs to orient itself to that. And India can again play a key role in setting the direction of how the world looks at it as well, at least in the emerging market perspective. So I think those are, and in case of Indonesia, so they're coming up with this policy to incentivize about 1 million two-wheelers new sales and 200,000 two-wheelers retrofitment. Coming back to the question on retrofitment, I don't think this policy is in the public domain, but we've been interacting with them, and actually they've taken so much of our policies, I've shared with their ministries, and expect their policy to look a lot like Indian policy. But the retrofitment is different there because they still have subsidies on fuel. So for them, a big motivating factor is how do they reduce subsidies, on fuel, and they see electrification as a means for that. So for them, the fleet conversion is more important than new sales. For us, industrialization and industry and manufacturing is more important. So, the focus more on new vehicles. So, every market has a different perspective in that sense. So for Indonesia, again, they have, the world's largest nickel resources. So their priority is to, get refining and, use the Asian market and other markets. They're also talking to several Indian companies, how investment can be made there. Again, for Africa, very different perspectives. So each of these countries has very different perspectives, but two-wheeler, three-wheeler buses is the common thread in emerging markets. And India can be a leader there. Of course, the competition is with China, which of course is a very different market. So Indonesia doesn't try to learn from China, right? When it comes to policies, because they understand the huge gap that exists. They try to learn from India. Similarly for South Africa, for other markets. So I think we are in this sweet spot where we can continue this leadership in policy, which can lead to leadership in business and, exports and all of those things. So I think that's how I would kind of correlate what's happening in India versus what's happening in emerging markets.
Thank you, Jasmeet. It's very glad to know that India is leading most of these markets in terms of electrification, and they are copying our policies. I think we should congratulate Niti Aayog for making this possible. Sir, I have one question for you. Whenever these discussions happen, everybody wants to understand how long the FAME subsidies will continue, and whether you would be including more categories of vehicles into FAME, whatever incentives are there, especially with reference to electric trucks and also to some extent the passenger cars.
So we are still, deliberating on this particular issue. But my sense is that subsidies will continue, but its directions will change.
Okay.
So maybe because our own experience is that if we spend more on the enabling infrastructure as compared to giving only individual incentives,
Yes.
probably that works better. But yes, one can always go in for some sort of mix, going in those areas which were hitherto which were unaddressed till now. So that should be there. Moreover, incentive, I always say, they are like just to tee it off, just to bring you to that point of inflection. If that understanding comes that it is already there, there's no point in taking it ahead. And one example I always give is that the scholarship is for your career. You don't study only for scholarship.
Oh, definitely not.
That is the idea.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Request anybody has any comment to add?
Very quick one. So just to add that, I think Sanjeev, to your point that have we solved for last mile, and is that reason why it did not show up? No, absolutely not. I knew that you will be delving into a lot of those issues, and just want to reiterate that while we have made great progress on the last mile and the small two-wheeler, three-wheeler vehicle segment, the issues that you laid out, I think we see those in the real world on a daily basis. Delivery partners, for example, for us, grappling with the issue of high cost of financing, which there is an established delta between the conventional vehicles and electric vehicles. And this is something we absolutely need to solve for. And how will we continue to maintain parity on the total cost of ownership? I think those are areas that that will need continued focus. I think that has been the focus, and therefore we have seen the aggressive growth in that segment. But I think continuing that will be critical for us to continue making progress there while also looking at the other segments. Thank you.
No, with all these PLI schemes which have been extended for manufacture of various aggregates required for electric mobility, I'm sure the price should come down with the localization. That is the experience of auto industry in the past also. So when aggregates get localized, the costs come down. So that should help address this. Yeah, sure.
Well, you rightly said that the true challenge that we go through is every time we get a subsidy, we also see on the other side that the lithium prices are just shooting up. I'm not sure if you've seen the latest curve. It's terrifically shot up once again. And that's a problem that we will continue to face. And frankly, it's no more a game of energy, it's more of political related, right? So those are very large things to solve for. But I agree with Shubhra once again. Now we spoke about folks moving from villages, tier 5, tier 3 towns for opportunities to metros and tier 1 or markets where delivery is a big business. When they come with probably 30,000, 40,000 rupees, and that's all. And while it's the fact on an Excel sheet that the TCO of the vehicle that they may buy on EV pays back really well in 18 months or even earlier. But for them, it's about now. How do they buy it? And if that is not enabled, even despite solving for great technology, charging, everything that we're trying to create for them, if we're not able to put more vehicles in their hands, there's a problem. The second thing is the 3PL partners or the logistic partners are all startups once again. And many of them emerging are not so well funded. And they also have a lot of challenge access to financing and therefore buying this fleet and leasing it out. Because of that, lots of problems are happening. They're going for probably substandard products available, not to blame them, and which is causing other problems for them. The downtime of the fleet, the multiple failures and so on. So somehow, of course, a lot of great effort in AIS 156, the government stepping in, as you rightly pointed out, PLI driving certain activities, quality is improving, but how do we put more vehicles onto their hands? I'm specifically talking about this topic, not the B2C, because of today's agenda.
Thank you. We have time for some questions, so I could open the house for questions. Yeah, please. Mike.
It's interesting to hear about very diverse perspectives on decarbonizing the So one question I had for all the panelists is while we are thinking about decarbonizing the freight sector, the transportation e-com sector, is there any thinking on what the results would be? How can we actually use the results, the consequence of it, for example, through labeling, carbon labeling on the products, to incentivize customers to go for that kind of products, and then in turn push the companies, for example, Amazon or Big Basket, or create competition between them to more aggressively pursue green transportation.
Not exactly what you asked for, but I think Sir reflected upon the Shunya Zero Pollution Mobility campaign. And one of the key components of the campaign was the corporate branding program, which means that all the deliveries and rides that are happening on EVs by these players, ride hailing and delivery companies, are going to be branded with the Shunya sticker. The idea is to appreciate not just the industry players who are taking so much effort spending money on electrifying their fleet, but also to make the consumers proud that the delivery is happening on electric vehicles, their contribution to the environment and that messaging around it. The idea is also going forward, probably we can think of maybe labeling. I think someone else also reflected on that. Can Amazon, for example, when customer is buying that product, can customer have that liberty to probably select that they want their delivery to happen on electric vehicle? I think that will need concerted effort and joint efforts by different players.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, sir, you brought out that point of saying key can we give that it creates awareness, but also sensitizes customers. And I think this all goes back to the larger life campaign that was, announced and really gets the support from our Honorable Prime Minister. And then all our programs that run, which is about sustainable consumption, end of the day, and changing consumer behavior. And I think we all have a role there in creating access to more sustainable choices. I think what is also required is an understanding of what we mean by calling a product green or sustainable or what, so going back to the issue of defining taxonomy so that there is understanding on what a product or a solution or what does it mean. And I think and while we can converge, and this can be something that we do, we self converge and try to define what that means. That's a starting point, but to me it really goes back to the larger objective of life. And I see that these are initiatives that will only accelerate going forward, and all companies and all organizations will have a key role to play there.
Yeah. So this is Pradeep. I represent OMI Foundation. We're a policy research think tank. So one thing that we need to take into consideration is most of the last mile connectivity are platform workers. They don't, the e-commerce companies don't own the vehicles, right? So whatever mandates or whatever you're trying to bring, that pain is going to go to the platform worker, right? So I feel it's important that in the transition, we need to take that into factor, especially if a platform worker switches to NEVI, the downtime should be almost negligible, right? So he should not lose his business in the transition, right? So what I want to understand from the people on the panel, especially from charge point operators and e-commerce players. So what are they trying to do in terms of solving this downtime? The second, from e-commerce players, there are other things like, these platform workers, their credit history is very poor. Already the interest rates are higher when it comes to EVs versus non-EVs, right? So what is that e-commerce players can do? I mean, it's definitely great that we have targets like 10,000, 100% EV by 2030. But what is that more than awareness than that e-commerce players can do? Can you create some collaboration with say like a national bank or a state bank in terms of creating that fund of funds or like a loan guarantee or something like that from e-commerce companies? I'm not just asking from Amazon perspective. I'm just trying to understand what could e-commerce companies do better. I'll pause here. Thank you.
I can start off, and maybe others can add. So you asked about two things. The first was about the two-wheeler delivery partners, and a lot of them, they come with their own vehicles. So you're right that bringing in mandates is not something. We do not believe that that's the right way for us, and our ambition and goals to decarbonize cannot be at the expense of a partner who's, at the end of the day, trying to earn their, contribute meaningfully and run a family. So that is not something that happens. What we are trying to do is make it possible for our delivery partners to be able to access and try to address the problems, whether that's about the vehicle itself, whether that's about the financing, and that's what we're trying to address and nudge the entire ecosystem so that becomes possible. Availability of fleet, increasing availability of fleet is what we are trying to do, and then therefore that will help us meet our objectives of having a more electric vehicles in our fleet. So that's the first part of it. And I think the second, you talked about financing for them. So we recognize, so there is recognition, and I think the programs that I just mentioned, and I think Sanjeev also alluded to them, there is an effort already underway to come out with a risk sharing program with multiple financial institutions. Part of that, the World Bank and SIDBI are leading it. Niti Aayog is the key organization again driving that effort. I think that is a very welcome initiative. We will definitely look to see how that can benefit and what role companies can play in facilitating that.
I just want to speak on the charging infra also, you did mention, right? So, the aggregators typically, how does charging infra today work, right? You have these aggregators who had a very large parking space where they will keep their vehicles overnight and ensure that it is charged, because none of us get deliveries at night. We generally get deliveries during the daytime. And what happens when a mom and pop or an individual guy is trying to convert his vehicle into electric, he has no place to actually go and park overnight. But a lot of e-commerce players, with whom we work, very large F&B or a grocery segment e-commerce, what they are trying to do is they're trying to place the charging infra in their warehouse so that the mom and pop guy can park the vehicle overnight over there and charge as well. Whereas they are able to facilitate him to convert into an electric vehicle and also ensure that he always has the uptime to run the next day. That is one of the parts that is being taken care of when it comes to the charging infra piece. Obviously, there could be other mechanisms. Obviously, financing is needed, the vehicle availability is needed. But from the charging point of view, I think this kind of takes care of that. The second thing that we also we have evolved as Kazam is we have started doing interoperability. So we understand now how the vehicle is going to move within the city. And typically, when you look at last mile delivery, it is a radius of maximum of 10 to 15 kilometers. So we know when and how much the person is going to move. And within the cities, are there public operators that are available who can give charging on the spot? Because today vehicles that are available range from 70 kilometers to 100 kilometers, but they need to do anywhere between 140 to 160 kilometers. And to add that balance 40, 60 kilometers, there are two options. One is typically there are 2 times the person comes into the warehouse to do the deliveries. So as soon as he enters, he waits anywhere between 1 hour to 2 hours. 1 hour in the queue and another half an hour to load the vehicle. So that is an opportunity when he can get electricity from the e-commerce player's warehouse and increase the range by another 20, 30 kilometers, at least minimum. And the other thing is, if he loses out on his charge on the way, he can simply open the app and he can find the nearest partner who's available in the public space. It could be very large oil and gas companies, or it could be even small charge point operators who already are there in the market, and you can go and charge. So that is, I think that's the piece that we are actually driving to ensure that even the individual mom and pop guy is able to move to electric.
Hi, this is Vaibhav here.
Yeah.
So I represent Bamboo, one of the sustainable company, my founder myself. And pardon me for my question, it might be naive, but what happens to the battery at the end of, what is the end of life of the battery? One question that I have, which I keep asking myself. Secondly, what do you think about alternative fuels, which are coming up big time, like, which is more circular in nature than what we are talking about the lithium ions today? So what is your take on that?
Yeah, good question. It's not too naive. It's actually a very valid question. So, as you know, the lithium-ion batteries, till it retains at least 80% of its sort of DOD, it can 75 to 80%. It's okay to be on mobility applications. Once it loses that, it has to go for fixed applications, probably for powering up node Bs or base stations for towers or any other fixed power needs. The other aspect of it is, of course, it goes into smelting, a smelter, and the minerals, or the nickel, manganese, cobalt are extracted. and further put to use. That's why it's expensive, right? Because of what it actually contains in the chemistry. So that's predominantly the two directions that this is evolving into.
Just to supplement, yeah,
You can go ahead first.
just to supplement what he said, there is a draft standard which has been, finalized regarding recycling of used spent batteries. So after it goes for secondary use, stationary use, once the life is exhausted, then these batteries have to go for recycling. And there are already some 3 startups who have developed the process for extracting all these materials from spent batteries. So that, and it's expected that they will be recirculated for making the batteries. And regarding your question about alternate fuels, you may be aware that the government is also working on various alternate options for decarbonizing the transport, like 20% ethanol blending of gasoline, then also a bio CNG, which would be actually substituting the natural gas. And in the process would be actually stopping the release of methane gas from bio waste into atmosphere, which is methane is supposed to be about some 26 times more hazardous for the ozone layer depletion. So if you are able to use all the bio waste for making biogas, actually the is a carbon negative process, and it will go a long way in reducing the carbon footprint of many of the processes.
And just to add on the recycling bit and the battery, so Europe is actually going to ban export of used batteries very soon, and the reason, of course, is these batteries are valuable because of the content of these batteries. So while we do need scale to recycle these batteries, because otherwise it's not viable. So the direction in which, from at least from a policy perspective, we need to look at is how do we get scale, or at least till the time other countries start banning, how can we create a ecosystem in India for recycling, even by importing batteries, because it can be a key way to source critical raw materials, and countries are realizing and waking up to that possibility. Every country, US, Europe, they all want to be hubs for recycling, but they also want to ban exports of used batteries. So it's going to play out because the battery is valuable. So first it will go into second life because there'll be, even after it's used in mobility is over, there will be use of it in stationary storage at in all sorts of use cases. But the problem is not what do we do with these batteries. The problem is how do we keep these batteries for extracting the minerals that exist within that.
Big point. We all spoke about the secondary life of these batteries and in stationary applications. And to that, so to highlight to you, and you'll be aware, the latest battery waste management rules by the Ministry of Environment and Forest talks about recycling. It brings in electric vehicles, batteries under its ambit, but does not necessarily talk about reuse, sir. And I think reuse of these batteries is critical because they do have a very valuable life after, yeah, absolutely, after their use in mobility. So just, thank you.
Yeah, this is the last question.
Yeah, if you can just hear me, then I think so. My question is basically about the last mile, and when we are looking at EVs as a solution, we've seen some companies experiment with non-motorized transport, especially food aggregators, as well as I think quick commerce players looking at bicycles, etc. So my question is, are they a non-trivial part of the solution to decarbonize last mile? And if so, from a policy perspective, are we missing out these options when we look at EVs as the only solution?
During one of my recent trips, I was talking to my colleague who takes care of our B2B business. When I was at Hyderabad, I did notice one of the quick commerce players using e-cycles to a great extent. In fact, I did one of the deliveries too to see how it feels like. So for less than 3 kilometers, it's it's looks like a good solution. Of course, pedelecs, it also reduces the stress, and battery is removable, you can charge. So if you look at how we are also embracing it, if you look at Europe, out of the 27 EU nations, at least the northern part of Europe, electric cycles is becoming the thing. In fact, we ourselves have invested, or rather acquired a couple of companies in Europe, expanding footprint there. So we strongly believe that in the whole play, e-cycles has its own space as well. But again, the same challenges are being faced in India too about the cost. So they come with aluminum frames because it has to be light. And aluminum frame industry in India is not that evolved. You have availability, but depends a lot on import. And also the cost is high. And comparatively between products available, building a good e-cycle in India is also a little high ticket. But then it's also a very valuable suggestion when we bring up to the ambit of financing. It's a difficult subject though, because it's not a registered vehicle. So in case of delinquency, it's very difficult to recover the product. So for that reason, probably financing is a bit of a challenge in that segment.
Yeah, with this, we close this session about electrification of e-commerce transportation. Thank you. I would like to thank all the participants and also the speakers for their valuable contribution and very active participation in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rao, and all the panelists for the wonderful discussion. Now we will have a tea break session for 5 minutes, and parallelly we will start our second session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Sir, on this proficient, I think I would like to discuss with you.
We have our own smart PMS. No, we just supply for ourselves. How makes for the it's like the manufacturer. No, they don't manufacture the cell. They have partnership with the cell. So what they are doing. Starting with
I request everyone to be seated. The second session will start soon. I request everyone to be seated. We'll start our second session soon. We'll start our second session now, which will focus on creating a vibrant ecosystem for sustainable packaging alternatives and local packaging manufacture. As the session chair, we have Mr. Slok Bharadwaj, who's a 1994 batch officer of the Indian Inspection Service. He's currently posted as the Deputy Director General of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He's looking after logistics in the ministry. Also, he's looking after the PM Gati Shakti National Logistic Policy, leads World Bank's Logistic Performance Index, and among others. Sir, we welcome you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I thank Ms. Shubhra Jain, who proposed my name, the TERI, the ITC, and also thank Mr. Vaibhav, Mr. Sunil, Mr. Ankit, and Ms. Shweta. It's very nice to be here, although I planned my things at the fag end because I had a meeting somewhere. Somehow it got cancelled and I'm here with you. Regarding this packaging things, the Department of DPIT and the Logistic Division, we wish to plan develop something like packaging guidelines or something like that for the entire country. For that, we need to have an interaction with the stakeholders like Amazon and other people. Even we are also on the, although this session is based on focuses on only the packaging, it should have also included the warehousing part of it. When whatever is packaged has to be, it cannot be instantly delivered. It has to be warehoused somewhere. So I suggest that warehousing should have also been a part of this. Anyway. So rather than me speaking too much on this packaging thing, because we shall start the activities after getting feedback from your side. And just I would like to apprise you, we have a specialized Indian Institute of Packaging under our ministry. That's based in Bombay. It has branch offices in Delhi and different parts of the country. And I'll suggest you get in touch with them also. I'll help you to get in touch with them. We can also bring them on the board so that we can finalize a certain broad guidelines how the thing should manage. And that's it from my side. And I would request all the stakeholders to kindly just coordinate with me and help me to formulate some good document. Yeah. Thank you. So I invite Dr. Sunil Pandey, Senior Fellow and Director, Environment and Waste Management, TERI, to carry on the.
Thank you, Mr. Bhardwaj. Open the discussion with a very brief note from my side. Incidentally, many of you would know. Okay, two of them. Okay. So many of you might know that Government of India has banned certain single-use plastics started with January 2022, and a more firm list came in 1st July 2022. And we know that legally passing a notification on a ban was an easy task. But to ensure that these items which were phased out will not be used 1st July onwards and will not be manufactured 1st July onwards is a difficult task. So that is one issue which I thought I'd like to flag. Interestingly, subsequent to this ban, we also did a project report looking at what's kind of readiness in terms of alternative packaging. And we were doing some stakeholder consultation in that to come out with how manufacturers of packaging or users of packaging, they look at the issue when it is when the alternative packaging issue is discussed. And we interacted with various stakeholders, including ITC and including Amazon as well. And there was some feedback which I have captured in a slide, which I thought I'll flag out to you. So overall, looking at the, we have been talking of alternate packaging because of the fact also, which is all well understood by you all, is because of the plastic menace currently and the contribution of plastics to marine litter issue, which has become a global problem. And after climate change discourse, in the current times, if you look at adverse issues, plastic litter and marine litter, its linkage to marine litter is, I think, most talked about issue. So overall, when we're looking at the need to phase out certain flexible packaging, overall there was agreement between brand owners that we need to come out with packaging which is more eco-friendly, which is easy to collect, easy to recycle. But they had certain preconditions. They said that we need an ecosystem which can promote use of this alternate packaging. One was that the overall policy framework should be when it is in place. It should be consulted with brand owners. It should be consulted with packaging manufacturers and look at. Because one major concern was most of this packaging, which is legally phased out, was actually manufactured with MSME sector. And looking at how the MSME sector, which was involved in manufacturing this packaging, would transition to this alternate packaging option. Because one option is that they close and move out of the business. Second is that the transition to this alternative packaging without closing their business. So that was one issue which was highlighted. Another was there are a lot of alternate materials since then, which have been used by many large, say, F&B suppliers or say railways and airlines. So one question was, which we also discussed with them, was whether these are really eco-friendly, and is there enough data on a life cycle basis to decide that these are good alternatives to packaging which is currently in use. And also related issue which also was flagged, and a specific example was given about these wooden pressed cutlery items which you often get in flights or in your journey. These are also single use. They are not meant to be reused or recycled. So one issue was flagged whether this is a really circular economy solution or not. And basically, they also needed some policy support in terms of looking at zero waste concept in the alternate packaging. So with these very few remarks, what I'll do is I'll move to our panelists. I believe there are some few panelists which are online as well. But what I'll do is I'll generally move to the discussion based on the sequence which we have with us. And idea is that each of these panelists can come with their views about the issue. Logistics, of course, is the issue. Mr. Bharadwaj has also flagged that. But I mean, if someone wants to touch on those issues also is fine. And generally 5 to 6 minutes deliberation by each of these participants. So we'll start with what I'll do is these bios are fairly elaborate, so I'll not spend so much time reading them for you. I'll just introduce them and where they work and what is their affiliation, and one by one they can give their remarks on the issues which we have flagged. So we'll start with Mr. Ankit Gupta, who is General Manager, Corporate Sustainability ITC Limited. Sorry, Mr. Ankit Gupta, General Manager, Corporate Sustainability ITC. And we are very happy that people like ITC and Amazon are also part of this deliberation, because they were also they were also very vibrant stakeholders for our discussion sessions. So, Mr. Ankit.
Specific questions you'll ask later, but I'll try to explain ITC's approach and perspective to this issue. We obviously recognize that we need plastics, especially for products like food. In absence of alternatives, there's no way around it. And to deliver good quality products safely across the country, which can be transported and stored safely, you do need that material. But having said that, then what else can be done? So I think as a company, we're really gifted with the synergies that we have within the company itself. So we have, of course, FMCG brands across different sectors. We have a paper business, we have a packaging business, we have our own R&D center which looks at material sciences. We have our own waste management programs which help us to recover waste, from the market and process it along with our partners. So along with these strengths, I think is what we try to build our approach on. Trying to, from our perspective, looking at it more holistically as much as possible. Where we can't, of course, redesigning or better design in terms of not having plastic to begin with is a no-brainer. That most companies have done that for quite some time, even as a cost-saving measure, because the moment you use less packaging, you obviously save on cost, and it has a also another benefit in terms of environment. So that is anyways part of every company's strategy by default. But in terms of redesign, for example, flexible packaging, we know that there is no alternative that we can use right now, but can we make it more recyclable? Can we move from complex families or structures which have multiple polymers to simpler structures, which probably will have a higher chance of getting recycled both mechanically or chemically? So that's number one. Looking at alternatives is slightly difficult for food packaging. I'll be very honest right now, because in absence of both, everything is at research stage. And plastic as a material, because it's evolved for so many years and you have a full supply chain to back it up, to get a new material, let's say, which is not fossil fuel based, which is coming from any other alternate raw material, when it's plant based, setting up the whole value chain will take some time. We've been engaging with a lot of IITs where new materials have been, formulated. They're at pilot scale, and there are some applications for which they could definitely be used for. but they are still, I think, slightly a few years ahead. With our expertise on paper and printing that we have within the company, as a company, we're offering solutions to other brands because you're also in the B2B space. So you have a lot of alternatives for, let's say, quick service restaurants. ITC supplies paper for that, which converters use to market their products to different brands. In fact, we're working with a lot of large FMCG brands who are our customers for our paper and packaging business, where we collaborate on newer design for them. Because I think because of external factors as well, because you have a UN plastic treaty on the way, most companies have a net zero ambition or a commitment they've made. And as a company, when we look at our scope 3 emissions outside our value chain, purchased goods is a significant contributor for most companies like FMCG, where 93% of your emissions could be outside your boundary. So for us to imagine reducing that requires us to look at circularity, alternate materials as a strategy by that logic as well. And from the point of view of customers asking for this, there's definitely in the B2B space, there's been a big push for the last 3 to 4 years. So there's a huge demand for this material, sustainable solutions, paper-based solutions, or more recyclable, less plastic solutions. And we are serving our customers with that. That market is really, really growing. And I think the likes of Amazon also are a big part of that journey, asking their partners to enable that. In the B2C space, I would say that for categories, let's say home care, personal care, it has moved, I think, far significantly ahead because of just the nature of packaging. If you're using rigid packaging, there are solutions available right now where you could incorporate recycled content in your packaging more easily. And I think because of the huge regulatory push that has happened in the last 2 years, I think none of us can deny the fact that the targets which the government has put are far ambitious than what anybody had planned on their own. Right? Even like most of us are part of the India Plastics Pact, the targets of the government has given are actually more ambitious than what the pact has taken as an industry. So the regulations have created this, I think, by default market for this to come, because there is a demand now that everybody would want recycled content in their packaging. By even just to comply, you would need 30, 40, 50% to come in. So that has created the demand. From supply side, there's still some challenges. I think one of the discussion points was to have local indigenous supply on that front. I think all of us know there are just a handful of people who can count on probably both of our hands, formal recyclers or formal players who help brands incorporate PCR in their packaging, which is sourced from India. So there's, I think, a big push both in terms of policy that is required to enable the recycling industry to supply that PCR to manufacturers of packaging who can then supply to brands. So it is definitely a very complex problem. That's why working on all sides is necessary. And at the end of it, because some plastic will become waste. That's why through our research on waste management programs, we know that, and the point is not to push the responsibility on the consumer. It is that without their collaboration and help, we will not reach the solution. Because if we want PCR to come in locally sourced, you would have to recover good quality waste from waste stream, which would obviously come from majority from consumers like all of us. If we segregate waste and it's backed by a sound waste management system with urban local bodies supplying that waste to, let's say, MRFs, which can then supply to aggregators, goes to recyclers, then enters packaging again. So this whole value chain, it doesn't work right now, but it's moving in the right direction. Even we've done a lot of programs, pilots, where we've established that it's possible for us to recover good quality waste through source segregation, pass it on back, if not for chemical recycling right now, but let's say for mechanical recycling. You're giving it another life. Economics are still evolving because it is more expensive to do it this way as compared to using virgin plastic to begin with. But I think with all the drivers that are coming in, both internal and external, it's gonna just a matter of time where this will also get fixed, and we will be able to demonstrate that at least in a country like India, recycling is a good part of the solution as well. Because in the West, I think they've given up on recycling. There's a huge because there, I think their systems don't allow for materials to get recycled within their economies as such, whether it's cost or something else. So I think West has completely dropped the idea of recycling there. I mean, I think probably because of consumers who were very, diligently putting their waste in bins for recycling, they found out that the waste never ends up getting recycled. So there's a huge backlash in those economies against this. But I think in India, we have an opportunity to demonstrate that recycling is possible. It's an important part of the solution, and it's going to be a transition. It will move from lower value applications like mechanical, where you get granules or some articles out of it, towards higher order applications where you get advanced recycling in place, and you get material that can be actually used for packaging, food grade packaging as well, eventually. Just last point I would want to make is that if I was an investor looking at putting money in recycling per se, I would be very cautious, right? Because if my supply chain is not there, if I am not going to get a good quality source material, consistent quality, large scale quality, then I would not invest money in that plant, right? And that's the challenge which a lot of recyclers face. If you're looking at scaling up your plant and machinery right now, where will I get the material from? So that's another uncertainty which, once fixed, will actually attract a lot of capital in this space, because there is, as I said, the market is ready. There's demand by virtue of regulation itself. Everybody has a target now. By even if they didn't want to take it, everybody has a target. So there's a demand is sorted. Supply will require a lot of enablers to kick in, whether it's technology, policy, finance. Those are things I think we need to work on right now so that the problem gets fixed at large. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankit. I thought I'll pose questions later on if the time permits. But our next speaker is Ms. Shweta Ramdas, who is sustainability leader with Amazon. And I know Amazon, the interaction which we had, are consciously shifting from plastic to paper-based packaging. So, I mean, in your remarks, if you have done some homework on what would be the pressure on paper resources when you shift to paper and demand for paper packaging goes up, if you can touch on that as well. So, Ms. Ramdas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Sunil. It's my pleasure and honor to be here today. So thank you so much to the TERI team for having me here, and to all my co-panelists. I think I'm looking forward to this engaging conversation, bringing in different perspectives from all sides of the value chain on packaging. I wanted to start off by saying that my dad is my biggest critic, right? And normally, and you would say, yes, all parents are your biggest critics. They're there to help provide that feedback loop. But for me, it goes one step forward, because every time an Amazon package gets delivered, my dad has something to say. He has something to say about the packaging. He has something to say about the waste that it generates. So I use that. I look at that as a positive feedback loop, just given the work that I'm doing on a daily basis. And I recognize that there is a problem that we all need to solve, especially at organizations like Amazon. So I want to step back a little bit to talk about some of the larger things and kind of the think big vision that here we at Amazon have. We recognize that climate change is a big problem. We recognize that plastic packaging especially has a huge environmental impact. And to address some of those problems, here at Amazon, we've taken a pledge to be net zero carbon across all our businesses. And for those who I'm sure all of you know that the scale of our businesses is really large, and therefore addressing a problem like this takes a significant amount of ambition. In addition to having a bold commitment to be net zero carbon zero, we recognize that packaging is at the forefront of the way in which we delight our customers, right? While we're doing things on transportation, we're doing things on green energy, hydrogen, all of those things. Those are all things that are not exactly very visible to an Amazon customer, but packaging is, right? You can see it, you can feel it, and you're constantly interacting with that experience. And therefore, our ambitions and our commitments to make sure that our packaging is sustainable, we take that very seriously. And there are a number of things that we've done to make sure that we're headed in that right direction. So to start off with, we have about 4 broad tenets that we apply. And the first one is eliminate. So obviously packaging, whenever there's an opportunity for you to eliminate packaging, that's the best situation, because then you don't have a packaging problem. So we have programs where we evaluate products, and we have millions of products that flow through our warehouses. So as opposed to some other brands which probably have a restricted number of products, we have millions of products. So our packaging or a approach to solving the packaging problem is a very unique one, right? Try designing packaging for millions of SKUs. You're going to end up with the problem that we have. And I only say that to bring out that there's a diversity in our approach to packaging. So our first, as I called out, the first point is to eliminate packaging. Now, many of you may have received an Amazon shipment with a small little brown note that says, in our effort to make this world more sustainable, you're receiving no external packaging. And that's one of the programs that we have. The second one that we have is to reduce packaging. So in situations where there are products where we can't eliminate a package, we attempt to reduce it. And the way that we approach that reduction strategy is we leverage science and innovation, we leverage machine learning, which gives us a lot of intelligence into how much should we reduce packaging and on which products do we reduce packaging. The third lever that we typically engage is reuse. Now, in many situations and many parts of our supply chain, we have adopted reusable packaging, where shipments and orders get delivered to a customer in a reusable tote. You will especially see this in our last mile grocery deliveries. You will not receive any separate bags for it. Including our main core fulfillment, we also have reusable totes to move things around just to eliminate additional packaging. And the last one, this brings me to the main topic of our conversation, and the question Mr. Sunil also posed, is alternates. Now, we've been through these three levers, and that brings us to, okay, in the event that I can't do any of these, I have to use packaging. What are the options for the materials that I use? We had plastic in our packaging mix long back. We have moved away from it. A lot of it has been internal company ambition, but it has also been accelerated by the government policies on eliminating single-use plastic. So we're very happy that we're all headed in that direction. Now, sustainable alternates, especially when you talk about that in the scheme of an organization like Amazon, needs to be scalable. Because when we implement something, we need to implement it across millions and millions of customer deliveries. So we need solutions for alternate packaging that has to be scalable. And the most important conversation obviously is about cost. While as a large organization, we're able to implement a lot of these leverage economies of scale and implement a lot of sustainable alternate packaging. You would have seen a lot of paper packaging flowing into your houses when you order, right? So those are all the shifts that we've made to move to alternate packaging. Now, again, I want to bring out a point that Amazon is just not what we are doing at our fulfillment centers. We have millions, lakhs of customers, lakhs of sellers who are doing their own packaging. We are facilitating getting those products to you through Amazon. Now, getting a local seller for whom cost is non-negotiable, he can't make a profit if he has to double his cost on packaging, is going to be a very difficult conversation to have. And therefore, I just want to highlight that the problem of cost-effective, sustainable alternatives is a very important one that we need to address. At Amazon, we feel, obviously, we are part of, as Ankit mentioned, we're part of the India Plastics Pact, where we're working together with other brands, sustainable brands like ITC and Unilever, to bring about an ecosystem that can facilitate sustainable packaging. We feel that there are other enablers that can also accelerate it. We've seen policy subsidies, we've seen incentives that has propelled the entire EV ecosystem in a favorable direction. Similar policy enablers would be super helpful and will help accelerate the same transition to sustainable packaging. In terms of the demand signals, we have organizations like ourselves and larger organizations that have made commitments to move towards sustainable alternatives. Those are the demand signals that we can capitalize on. It's from us, it's from our customers, as well as the larger fulfillment network that we have. And finally, I just think that just increased collaboration would also help. The need for secondary packaging through e-commerce companies is largely because we need to protect the package through our, I would say, not suboptimal supply chain, so your products that you get are prone to damages. We want to make sure that your products arrive damage-free.
and therefore the need for packaging. So I really think there are opportunities, and we are exploring those opportunities where we collaborate with brands, because technically when you look at a brand selling a product, they are made not necessarily for an e-commerce channel. So bringing out and customizing packaging specific for e-commerce deliveries would also greatly enable and accelerate the transition to sustainable packaging. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously, reusable packaging is something which is an interesting idea, and we'll discuss it further. Our next panelist, it seems, is online. Mr. B.K. Karna, Director, Packaging Clinic and Research Institute, BCRI. Mr. Karna, I would like you to, in your deliberation also, if you're also researching on, because we, in the beginning, Mr. Bhardwaj indicated that we are also researching, trying to research on different plastic polymers, on how packaging can be made simpler and how the recyclability can be increased, and versus alternate materials which can provide similar quality production, especially if you look at food packaging, if there is any work happening at your side on that. So Mr. Khanna, floor is yours. Dr. Khanna. Sorry.
Very good evening, all of you. I request organizers to make me co-host so I can show some of the slides. I have the 6 slides for you to have this storming session in this. In between, I would like to highlight the few points here. Is that my slides is going to speak about the reality where we are. I belong to the institute called Packaging Clinic and Research Institute. Alternate to IIP, where IIP I have worked 27 years, and in that IIP is our mandir, temple, it is there. So that I am from Hyderabad, and here I would like to discuss the few concerns very seriously. And in that, you can see that expectation and reality, what it is. The subject, it is focusing on the e-commerce, and in that e-commerce, it has to be there, the local manufacturing, the sustainable. So please click it. I can do that. You see that what it is there. Everyone is thinking that my product is very good, but it's a bad packaging. This is, somebody will say the product is bad, but it's good packaging. Now you please think about this concern, that where is the subject? India is producing the highest packaging professional in the world. India is having the highest packaging institution in the world. We have got the 2 situations here. The non-packaging professionals having the practical experiences. What is our objective? E-commerce, where I have seen that this common objective is very clear. Good product, good packaging, right packaging. This is the general theory. But what is the reality in this e-commerce industry? Do you know? And I have come to know that e-commerce industry is having the 7 million product. It can be 8 million product. And consumer, 130 crore people exercising with this. Now there are 7 to 8 million products versus the packaging, only the 40 or 50 varieties of the packaging. In that we need to address some of the situation every day. I do advocate the plea of earlier speakers. He has stated very categorically that her father is saying that I'm getting this product and packaging is this much. It is the case of every family. Please see my next slide. What I have brought before you is the over packaging. Now this is the case of the 2 leaders, Flipkart and Amazon. I have got one item that is the keyboard of computer. Here the sustainable packaging being used here. All corrugated boxes. Fillers is the only that cellulose based. But here is the over packaging, empty spaces. We are saying sustainable packaging, but we are saying that it is over packaging also. Where is the gap? Gap means that the right packaging Every product is just speaking that I am fit for this packaging, because means Amazon and Flipkart and other e-commerce companies having the millions of the products. Computer system will say that it is this much corrugated board, you go with this. Whether it is suitable, that means the gap area is the classifications. And in that classifications, though we are using the sustainable packaging, the paper-based packaging, you can claim that there is no plastic here. Is it the right? Can we address on this? This is the situation I wanted to submit before you all. A lot of things happening, but where is the gap? There is also the gap. It is happening, the over packaging. One side we say over packaging, and other side we say sustainable packaging. With the same case, how two things will emerge? My next slide will speak with the again case study. It is here. You can see that the SIFT plastic BOPP tape is being used. We have shifted to craft paper. Means paper tape. Now we have the available cellophane tape. Again, cellophane. You recall 40 years back, we used to say sellotape. Sellotape has been replaced by BOPP. Now the trend it is coming, you have got the biodegradable plastic BOPP tape also. The collective work, it will give the directions, and in that direction we need to go. Here is the craft paper. We have the paper tape. E-commerce company has completely replaced the plastic tape, and they have used the cellulose-based, highly expensive. And I do advocate of my earlier speaker, Shweta Ramdas ji. She has stated very categorically the ultimate, it is working for the cost. We can do a lot, but the cost economy has to be there. So my slide is also second slide you see here. Next slide, please. Now you can see, please wait. What is that? Confusion. Everybody is confusing everyone in our country. You see, I'm holding this plastic. It is written here, PLA bottle. It is with me here. PLA, bioplastic, it is biodegradable plastic film. It is being known, but it is not PLA. Name has been given. Every packaging professional will say, this is the PLA bottle. It is biodegradable. It can be. This name, it is appearing in the market for the pharmaceutical. Please click it. You will find here that is for the sodium chloride. It is for the flexi drip. And for this company, the name it is coming PLA, and it is not a PLA. People will say that the plastic bottle. That's why we have written the PLA. It has got the two meaning. One meaning is the plastic means biodegradable plastic. Other meaning, no, it is PLA. I have told when we checked, it is LLDP only. This kind of confusion, it is also there in the name of sustainable. So many experts are available in our country. I would like to say that some of them are very fake also. What is the trend? It is happening. And in that trend, you would like to see it here. That is, please click this. Sustainable packaging trend, what it has, please. My submission, already it is being done. Replace plastic with the paper or the bioplastic. Already it is being done, but the cost is very expensive. In the same means mailer, plastic mailer, same size, I have seen, and that is cellulose based. Weight, it is difference of the 20 grams, 18 grams. One side we are saying that we are going to replace. Yes, you replace it, but where is the alternate? And we should work. I would like to support and say that you are importing the paper from many countries. In our country, jute, it is there. Jute is known as a golden fiber. Have we exercised for the reinforced paper? It can generate the more employment issues. My submission to the organizers that we have got enormous raw materials. Jute can do the miracle. Why should we go for this? And India is advocating for Atmanirbhar. Why not we should become the Atmanirbhar craft paper that is being used for this? That has to be advocated. Reduce and remove. I do advocate. Earlier, a speaker has told very categorically. I have this. Here you can see here. We are using the toothpaste. Have we imagined that what is the use of this carton? Can we replace it directly? When we have used this intermediate here, then what is the use of this carton? Alternate can be done. No, brand will say no. My submission is that the packaging professional, marketing team, the brand promotional, and the product team should sit together where there are the need, you use this. No compromise with the good packaging, but over packaging, a one-side statement, it has not to be said. Shifted to the mono materials. Lot of things it is happening. I would like to say that there are the many areas concerned where we can do it. If you will keep that only unit pack, and means one, it is that only that the simple packaging can give you the more effective. Here it is the increase of the recycled content. I would like to tell you that in every plastic, you are using virgin plastic. Here we have got in laboratory TGA, thermogravimetric analysis. Virgin plastic versus 40%, 50% recycled plastic will endure the same functional properties. With this same functional properties, why not we should increase this recycled content and get this more? Design for the remains recycling. What kind of the design it has to be stated, and there you will have to address the concern. Next, please. Design for the reuse. Reuse, you can see here, we are using this plastic. Have we designed anything that food grade, if this material will endure more migrations, it won't be used? What is the limit of the reuse? That content also, it has to be designed well, particularly the container has to be safe, clean, recycled, everything. It has to be, next slide. These are the sustainable trends in that we have the sustainable mistake going on. Please, next slide, please. My submission is that, what is the, please wait. My submission, my last slide is here. As I would like to tell, Dr. Bharadwaj has indicated two things together, warehouse. Under this packaging, it is called as a transport worthy packaging. In that, there are the three roles are coming. We say SHT, what is the storage condition, what is the handling condition, and what is the transit condition. This is the role of the every packaging professionals. In that, we have the ISTA 6 or the transport worthy analysis. And here, I have seen that local manufacturer or big manufacturers, we don't keep Indian standards. Indian standards are very good. We are having the very much craze for the ASTM standards, British standards. Why can't we take the Indian standard? There are the 600 Indian standards related to the packaging. And in that, 1060 and 7028 indicates about the transport worthy packaging. We will work on this. My submission that what could be, when and how, that is RIP, rest in peace, how it can be. The ways, reduction or replace. As much as you can reduce or replace, you have the need, you invite innovations. And one area we are not doing, and we are not doing what is that? Audit, packaging audit. You understand that packaging is the last operation of the product, but you should understand it is the first impression of the consumer, first handshake to the consumer. And in that way, the alternate, there are so many packaging institutions are available. Temple of packaging, we have IIP, and other than so many, I'm the student of IIP first batch, postgraduate diploma in 1985. And founder advisor for MTech in packaging IIT Roorkee. So involve the true packaging professionals. Then I would like to audit is essential, the analysis it is essential, and in that the cost justification is essential. And my last point it is that I have written to Prime Minister, I have spoken to, I have submitted to Piyush Goyal ji, and please go through this. That is the Indian Packaging Board. From this seminar, the narratives must be established, and the biggest institute, TERI, should also advocate to have as like a spices board, then coconut board. Why not we should have the packaging board, where there's so many packaging in that, the paper, plastics, metal, glass, so that NITI involve us. TCRI is a small institutions. I'm thankful to the organizer, Amazon, that they have given us the opportunity to speak. We have a lot of materials. The team has to be established. So with this, thank you very much. I'm looking forward for the long assertion. Green packaging, indeed the need. Not in the superficially way. It has to be with the reality with this, the justifications, and justification will every corner, it has to be there. Thank you very much for giving me such opportunity, and it was only for 6 minutes allotted. I have taken 7 minutes. Thank you very much. God not coming. I could not listen.
Sorry. A small suggestion on your RIP term. Probably you'll like to call it relax and peace. Once you have right packaging option with you. And interestingly, our next speaker also is from technology background. Mr. Vibhor Rastogi, Professor, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. And I'd also like to ask him some of these questions which were very pertinent to you on what are kind of research happening. And also if they're doing something on bioplastics, which again is, I mean, there are a lot of discussions around how useful they are or how economical they will be in future to use. So floor is yours, Professor Rastogi.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak in this a very needed kind of a session. So Professor Khanna already explained so many of the things, or actually he explained his pain regarding the packaging. And as I'm also a researcher in the same field, so there are a few of the things that I would also like to mention. First of all, as correctly said by Mr. Gupta from ITC and Ms. Ramdas from Amazon, that there are several strategies that they are actually focusing on. The very first one is to eliminate the package, second to reduce, third to recycle or reuse, and the fourth one is the alternative materials. So this is not something very shocking for me, because in order to find out the alternative materials, you really need to invest. You need to understand the performance of the materials. And I guess probably that's why alternate materials is the last priority in the list. So, but this is something that we researchers would like to step in. As Professor Khanna said, and similar to my experience, that there is a huge scope of the alternate materials. And for example, plastic. We can replace the plastic with the biodegradable plastic, but then issue would be the cost. First issue would be the cost. Second issue would be the performance. Like this is something that we all know. But how to cope up with all these things, this is something that we would need to develop with the time. So if I speak more on the alternative materials, as I am more from the packaging background, paper background. So, and there is a very huge demand for the paper these days. We all know that. And no wonders why. And the cost of the paper is also more or less doubled in 2 years because of the huge demand. And as the demand is high, but the supply is not that much. So this is something that we really need to think. So in order to get the supply done, we really need to innovate ourselves. We need to innovate new products that can replace these kind of materials. So now talking about some materials, here I would like to mention that we like to incorporate even the local markets or the local areas. Then only we would be able to get success into this sector. Like for example, these days we are developing the papers using hardwood and the softwood. And the softwood is something that we are importing from outside, and it's quite expensive. But the thing is, although we know that there are ample amount of non-woody fibrous material available in India, we don't want to use it. We don't want to use it because until and unless we get the proof of concept in our hand, we are not ready to adopt it. This is the problem that I feel. It's been 3 years for me in IIT, and before for around 10 years I was in Europe working again on papers and several other things. And here I find that the collaboration between the industries and the research institutes, it's fairly very poor. And the reason again would be the cost. If we are able to somehow limit that gap, more cooperation will be there. We would definitely come up with more better solution if you give us this opportunity to develop the materials. Like as I talked regarding the local market or the local material, for example, there is an ample amount of agro waste materials that are available, but somehow we are still not using them to our full capacity. Although the government of India has utilizing this kind of material for producing bioethanol successfully, but still there is a substantial amount of material that is being burned or used for some other purposes, but a very small fraction is used to produce the paper. There are some industries, paper mills, that are actually producing the paper from the agro residues. Definitely the kind of performance that we would like to have from the paper, from the packaging grade of paper, will not be there. But for that thing, we need to innovate. We need to blend them with some big fibers, long fibers, not the hardwood fibers, because again, they will increase the cost. There are several long fibers available in India. Like for example, as Professor Chetna correctly said, jute is an excellent material that we can use as a reinforcing to reinforce the short fibers. Then we have the hemp. Then what else? We have bagas. So there are several things that are available. If I talk about the north, in north we have ample amount of wheat straw and the bagas that we can easily use to produce paper with some additives and all in that to have the same functionality. Similarly, if we talk about the other parts of India, they are having more of the rice straw. So we could also use the rice straw to produce the paper. And there are several other kind of non-woody fibrous materials like jute, hemp, mulberry, corn straw, bamboo, flax, kenaf. So these all are the things that we can employ. But the thing is, we need to identify the local area. We cannot we don't want to export the material from north to south. Then it would be very expensive. We need to explore the local area, and dependingly, we need to explore the properties that we are getting. So all these things, they will come again under the roof of R&D. And the good thing is that like I come to know that it's a very good initiative by the government of India, that we have for the private industry, they need to pay a tax known as CSR, corporate social responsibility tax, that they need to invest in R&D activities or for any other social activities. So my question would be, why industries are not actually using that fund to produce new materials, to give a fraction of that money to research institutes like IITs, so that we can help industries like you and help finally our economy to make it more circular and more sustainable. So this is the one thing that we can do. Also, as a researcher, I would like to request the companies that please trust us. Please trust that we will be able to deliver the product. yeah, maybe not the time that you wanted, because every new R&D takes time. So along with the trust, I would need your patience as well, and some risk-taking attitude should also be there. Because if you not take the risk-taking ability or the attitude, then it would be very difficult for you to invest in the R&Ds. As Mr. Gupta said, that it would be difficult for them to invest into a business that is having some risk, that so that it should not be commercialized. Or so maybe in that thing you can go from the CSR. The fund should be from the CSR, so that should not be a problem, I guess. And then I can also say that it feels good that we are actually going back to the old times when we were used to of seeing Parle-G wrapped in paper, bread packed in paper. But today we cannot afford that with the same paper and with same performances, because the things change, the time changed completely. We want the material to have more shelf life. So in order to have more shelf life, we need the material so that it can also provide the barrier properties. It should also provide some strength properties so that it can sustain the mechanical shocks and all during the transportation processes. So yeah, then regarding this alternative non-woody materials like the wheat straw and all, they are also beneficial for the environment, because as these materials are very low in lignin, and during the paper making process we need to pulp the material. So we need not to use very harsh chemical for that, or we do not want to use more chemicals for the process. Like for example, that we are used to having the kraft pulping in case of the hardwood. So this process actually generates a considerable amount of sulfur in the environment as mercaptans. So this is one problem. Then the second problem that I can see is that the lignin that is actually produced afterwards, there is a possibility to extract that lignin and to use for some innovative applications, but that lignin is actually sulfonized, so we cannot easily use it. It's little bit dirty. Rather, if we use this alternative non-woody materials, a simple soda pulping process would be enough to liberate the fibers, and at the same time it should give us let's say the lignin that is free of the sulfur, and it should not have the sulfur in the environment. So this is also having one advantage of this process. And then regarding, like, we are talking of the alternative packaging, so we also need to think about the chemicals or the additives that we are adding into the paper. Like, I feel that like there is hardly any check on the product that is available in the market. Like few days back, I remember I ordered the thermoformed pulp plate, and just out of the curiosity, I poured some hot water over it. I found that it smells like so much of the rotten egg-like smell. So like there was hardly any standardization in the testing protocol that we also need to fix along with the R&D activities. Then, yeah, so there are several opportunities I can see in this sector. The paper will not going to die any soon. It will remain as such. There were some time that we thought that we will not going to use paper, especially because of digitalization. Newspapers and all that now they are coming in the tablet mode, digital mode. But with the packaging and all, we cannot like there will be no digitalization in the packaging. So paper always hold its special position. And then I would also like to request the government of India to have more research calls per year, so as that we could also get the opportunity to have better funding and more development of the new products. And just lastly, what I've seen in the Europe in several years, that they also having facilities to sort the waste, because until and unless we recycle the waste, we cannot solve the problem. So it has to be recycled at the consumer end. So for that, the consumer also needs to be get trained. So at least our government can have the different sorting bins for the paper separate, glass separate, tin separate. So maybe with the time, our consumers will learn these good habits as well. And with this, I would again like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Rastogi, for providing an interesting life cycle perspective with a focus on a paper. And the discussion on paper actually reminded me of a very old quote around a decade back. A very famous scientist on this paper and plastic debate said that imagine what would happen to our forests if all of the India and China shift to tissue paper for their toilet use. And with that remark, I'll move to our next speaker, Mr. Vaibhav Anant, founder, Bamboo, which is sustainable packaging organization. He has started this organization, and I'm sure he has a lot to say about eco-friendly packaging, alternate packaging, sustainable packaging, the whole debate which we are having in light of ban on SUPs.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil. And I would like to thank TERI and Amazon for inviting me here and become a part of this elite dais. I completely resonate with Dr. Karna's passion towards making it a green packaging, and I mean, we have been working together since quite some time now to throw some light. And I think what I need to speak, all of you have already spoken. I would like to answer all of them in my opinion. So I would like to touch one very crucial point here. There's a huge difference between biodegradability and compostability, what Dr. Karna was showing as a PLA material. Although in India, what happens is, a lot of fake products, as I mentioned, people call it PLA, but that's not PLA, it's LLDP or any other plastic product. However, even PLA is not the right solution, correct me if I'm wrong, but PLA is a product which can be composted. However, unfortunately, in India or any developing nation, we do not have industrial composting facilities. So even if you have developed a compostable product, you might not be able to biodegrade it because first there is no, I would say, a supply chain of collection of the compostable products. Secondly, there's no composting facility. So that's a major challenge for people developing compostable products, and it's green flashing that they call it biodegradable. And unfortunately, Government of India has also allowed using PLA products in garbage bags and certain other products. So I think that the request initially that I would place to the Government of India is, we should ban on the compostable products as well until we have set up the supply chain for recovering those compostable products from the industry and making facilities that can decompose these compostable products. Secondly, my fellow friend Mr. Ankit mentioned there is no alternatives to MLPs. I would like to quote here that Bamboo as a company has developed multiple alternatives which can replace MLPs, and happy to also mention we work with Unilever International to replace your shampoo sachets, to replace your soap packaging, to replace multiple other product lines that we are working with them on a pilot as of now, which can be placed across the globe today. Also, to also point out Mr. Vibhor's point on working on innovation, we as a company, we are not only a packaging company, we always focus on innovations. We have had a couple of patents to us. We have, and which is basically on the field of innovation, what we have done so far in respect of paper development. As my fellow friends mentioned, the three key parameters to paper development are cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, and the fiber length of the product. And most of the softwood and the hardwood is used as of now. However, if you see back in 1800s, India was the country which was focused on developing papers out of bamboo. Bamboo has a similar properties as compared to softwood, which means the length of the fiber is roughly around 2.5 centimeter, which is there in the softwood pulp as well. The cellulose content is very high. The lignin content is very low. There is a challenge of silica, which has been overcome with certain usage or ETP treatment plants that we have. And we are the only company in India to develop bamboo-based craft papers. We are the only company to develop banana fiber-based craft papers. Multiple innovations that we are doing is using waste leather to develop papers. We are using waste agro-based materials to develop papers. We have developed roughly around 15 different types of alternatives only in paper, specific to different kinds of requirements that a client has. So when it comes to the strength, we do have strength available, which we have recently done for Amazon. Is we have developed a paper with reinforcement, which has given 7 times the strength which is required or which is found in a recycled paper today. And fortunately, I guess with the data that I have, we have been able to solve the pilferage issues with our clients on these papers that we have developed so far. Having said so, food packaging material was touched upon by Mr. Ankit as well. We have already solutions in that place where we could replace all of your food packagings which are layered with single-use plastic internally. All the paper cups that you see are all layered with 15 microns of plastic. We have an alternate already present, and it's just a matter of time that we would take it forward to the mass scale. Unfortunately, we tried reaching out to ITC for development of bamboo papers very initially, but was turned down because as a matter of fact, because you are a very large company, there are a lot of hierarchies and a lot of other things, and we thought you could be the best possible partner for us in developing bamboo papers in India. But I think there is a lot of space for us to develop these indigenous papers in India, and there are enough of raw materials. We being the second largest producer of bamboo in the world, we have 16 million hectares under bamboo cover today, and we need to exploit that, because bamboo as a product takes roughly around a year's time after it grows from the level of the earth. It takes 3 to 4 years to be bamboo to be ready for harvesting, and it regrows to its full length in a year's time without you having to replant it. So that's some very, very sustainable material that we use in our raw materials today. And yeah, I touched upon the PLA part. When I talk about the cost part, right, which is being taken care. If you see today, the government has mandated the plastic, the single-use plastic has to be 125 microns and above. And if you see the cost structure of plastic today, it's 135 to 140 rupee a kilogram, the base granule. When you convert it into film to make it ready to make any other product, you have to invest roughly around 25 more rupees on it. So that takes it up to 160 rupees a kilogram versus a paper that we do. It roughly varies between 54 rupees to 120 rupees a kilogram. Now you have to impart a plastic-like structure that costs us roughly around 30 to 35 rupee on it. So even on an average, it costs roughly around 100 rupees, which is 60 rupees cheaper than plastic today. The problem is not the cost. The problem is we are so much used to use illegal plastics. I'm not all the big institutions, but all the small mom and pop stores or small brands, they're so much used to use a 40 micron or 60 micron plastic that they feel there's a cost detrimental for them to shift. However, it's not at all. If you look at it, we are 57% cheaper than plastic today. It's a no-brainer for anybody to move into our products which we have developed so far. So I think the government have to take strong and stern actions or make it detrimental for people to use lower grammages or microns of the plastic. There have to be hefty charges because, I mean, for the reasons, I can't mention those things, but those are reality that, people are getting away with it right now. So you have to make it more prudent for them to use a legalized plastic. In if that case, the paper is a best alternate, and it's much cheaper alternate to them as on today. Talking also about what we need from the government or the institutions are, we need encouragement. We have a team. We have a dedicated team of 12 people who are working in new product developments and R&D specifically, and all of them are from IIP and multiple other institutes. And a very, very recent development, what we are doing is replacing your EP foam or your the thermocol based products which are used in packaging in your appliances, and which much a better quality and a biodegradable one, which is a material which is found in only India and in eastern part of the country of India, and which is known to all of you, but nobody have thought around that. You can develop an alternative to that. So I think we have the innovations in place, we have the products in place, we have everything in place. It's government regulations which have been imposed have to be strictly followed by the people who are not following it, and it has to be imposed properly by the government of India. Then it can be scaled in no time. There's enough of raw material. There's no problem of supply chain at all. There is no supply chain. It's just covering it up. There is no supply chain problem whatsoever wherever it is. We are capable enough to develop that. And to be really honest, Amazon has been very a significant contributor in our scale today. We have the largest facility of developing mailer bags in India today, which is 20 times the average median industry capability that they have. So we can manufacture roughly around 3.5 crore of mailer bags today, and we are converting roughly around 2,000 tons of paper today, which is mostly contributed by the bamboo paper and the recycled paper, which are developed using banana fibers or jute fibers also. The problem with the jute fiber is you don't get the strength. Unfortunately, we have done that. We have developed the paper. You don't get the strength which is required in jute. The only two alternates that we have is banana or bamboo, which has proven to give the strength which is required by the packaging industry. So we need to understand, where it is used, what is the purpose of the use, and how you could, develop an alternative which can serve the purpose of it. So with that, I would like to thank again for the opportunity for me to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vaibhav, for very interesting possibilities, and looks like scaling out some of these opportunities would certainly bring an economy of scale and make them more attractive to potential users of packaging. And with that, what I'll do is I'll open the session for question and answer. If some of you would like to engage one of these panelists for any query which you might have. Otherwise, I'll ask Kumar to propose vote of thanks. We are standing between you and, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Hello, sir. My name is Florence. I'm currently pursuing MBA in Sustainable Management. So while we're talking about this packaging and everything, how we can shift, does packaging and sustainable packaging comes under a materiality issue for businesses as of now when we talk about FMCG companies, both of the e-commerce FMCG companies, and we have a startup idea which provide a collaborative tie-up, and is this really a materiality issue for all in all spaces across all the vertical?
The answer is yes, if you want a short answer. And I tried to explain earlier as well, there are so many drivers which are, you can't escape this issue. If you are a consumer-facing industry or you serve other businesses, the demand is coming from everywhere. And some of the solutions even Vaibhav spoke about the future. I mean, that's the future where it will move towards, and the entire ecosystem of how it gets manufactured, delivered, and packaged, and through e-commerce delivered to the consumer at your doorstep. And then how do you recover it back as once it becomes waste? This is the future. So it is, I don't think any large company is not thinking about this issue day in, day out. And driven by many factors. Regulation is one of them, but consumer interest and awareness on this issue is so high, right? So as a consumer facing industry, you have to engage with what the consumer wants as well. So across different categories. So whether it's a shampoo or a body wash or a packet of chips or atta or whatever you consume, each consumer is signaling that they want, something better. So most companies are working towards that.
Yeah, what I heard was, the whole debate was. I am Shashikant Chopre. I represent Seeds. Its logo is actually bamboo. So what I heard was essentially sustainability. When you say, I'm hearing from the sustainable use point of view, like, how much of it can be recycled, or how much of it can be, durability, for example. Sustainability is actually presented in that way. But my question to Vaibhav specifically is, since you've actually been involved in processing and developing the packaging material, alternative packaging material, I was intrigued to know if you thought about sustainability from the carbon dimension point of view. I mean, for plastic production, what are the embodied carbon versus the alternative packaging material that you develop? What is the embodied carbon?
A great question, I would say. Sorry, I did not touch upon that point earlier. So as a company, yes, sustainability is not only in the product, but also in the processing and the sourcing of it, right? Why we have chosen the materials we have chosen is because it's the most sustainable material in the sense that the amount of water used in, let's say, for example, making bamboo ready to harvest is 1/10 of the water required to, get a hardwood out of it. Secondly, in the processing, right, we are net carbon neutral or negative because we don't use fossil fuels in our generators. We use biofuels, which are developed using agro waste. There's a company in Pune where we source our biofuel from, which also delivers to Unilever and multiple other companies. So that's one thing. Secondly, the power that we use. We have solar panels installed in our facilities. So it's a 3-acre facility that we have, and we generate 75% of our electricity through solar. And till now, when you talk about plastic, there's a thing which is called as plastic credit. We are working with, and it's been some time, and because there was so whenever you apply for a carbon credit or a plastic credit, there are processes defined by the institutions. However, there was no process defined for getting a plastic credit or a carbon credit for eradicating single-use plastic before. So we have worked on defining a process which has taken roughly 1.5 years for us to do that. Now there is an auditor who is auditing us for getting plastic credit or carbon credit. So that way also we are very much concerned about how and what. It's basically walking the talk, right? So we talk about sustainability, and we not being sustainable in processing doesn't make sense. So that is the reason we have gone through all of these steps and understanding sustainability as a whole when we offer something to our client, right? So not only that way. So if you see on the compliance part also, we are the most compliant company in packaging industry, right? Because packaging was always reserved for MSME sectors, right? Since 1996, the packaging as an industry was reserved for MSME, and that is why ITC or any other big company do not get into conversion of the products, right? By the law, they are the largest producer of paper in the world. It makes just a minute for them to get into conversion, which they do not do because they're binded by the law there. So, and these MSMEs, the focus of these MSMEs has always been, how do I fulfill my machines? And nobody has a thought process on making it a compliant company unless you are an EOU, which is export oriented unit, where you have to do exports. Apart from them, nobody is compliant. I mean, 99% is not compliant. I can't say everyone, but 99%. So this also is a part of your, I would say, sustainability aspect, because you have central pollution control boards, so that you're not producing which is not to be produced at your facility. So all of these things matters a lot when you talk about sustainability, and we as a company have taken those steps positively to ensure that, even though this is not asked by our clients today, but we are ready with it when we work with such clients in future. So we have thought about the sustainability when it comes to processing, when it comes to sourcing, when it comes to choosing a material also. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. For the want of time, shall we close it here? Because 6 o'clock we need to basically. Has somebody got a question? Quick question. Yeah.
So, Vaibhav, actually, I have gone through the Bamboo's business model. So I want to ask you one question, that when we are giving, for example, a company is switching from plastic packaging, especially from coming from EPR, implementation of EPR and all. So do we have to give them how much environmental impact we have reduced by substituting the plastic packaging to Bamboo's environmental friendly packaging? This was my first question. And another question is, like, all the market is moving toward net zero. Like, basically major of the companies, for Amazon also, their targets is to go net zero. So how can this packaging help them? Like, in what do you say? In what impact it will cause? Like, amount of impact it will cause? When will they substitute? Like, scope 3 category 5 is emission from waste, right? So what impact it will cause on that category? So these are my two questions.
Okay, thank you. For both of your questions, there is one answer, which is we are getting plastic credits, which can be further sold to these companies, which can compensate in their further emissions. So that's how it will help them to reduce the or to claim the impact that they are creating. Secondly, when they are using it themselves, they can also, get those carbon credits through these institutions, where they can mention about how much impact they have created by substituting plastic with a sustainable alternate.
And do we have to provide them the amount of impact, positive impact caused by substituting?
Yes.
To every client, or is it a
Not
requirement?
necessary. Whosoever asks us, we have to provide to them. How much are we saving to them?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the patience which you had, and let's give big hand to all our panelists for providing very interesting insight into future of alternate packaging and how are they going to become viable in times to come, and the commitment of users of packaging, and how are they going to be phasing out problem packaging. And I would now give the floor back to MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey, and all the panelists for the insightful discussion. I also request Dr. Pandey to hand over a small gift from our side to all the panelists. Thank you. Yeah, it's vote of thanks. So I request Mr. Uma Maheshwaran to give the vote of thanks.
So I would say both the sessions was kind of very much interesting for us. We know that e-commerce is something which we cannot ignore in our life, which is like kind of it has become a very integral part. So a lot been said in the overall spectrum that e-commerce, everyone knows it's only on the energy, but there are a lot of things which is not done. But this is the first of its kind of initiative which we are talking beyond the hard to abate sector. So everyone knows net zero or decarbonization is primarily on the hard to abate sector, but this is the first of its kind which we are trying to do for the service sector. That's what Mr. Reshmi also mentioned. So as I mentioned, this is the kind of the beginning, and we would like to thank Amazon for helping us to start this process. So we would also work with multiple agencies, and thank you so much for the government support. Also, thank you, sir, for coming here and spending the good amount of time with us. And we'll be working with multiple organizations. And thanks for all the speakers who came both physically as well as in the online, and all the present participants who are kind of staying here for a long time. And I think this is the only event in WJ which is going for a long as a kind of a thematic area. And that's it from my side. Thank you so much. And we will be having the kind of follow-up discussions with the various stakeholders and to take the conversations further. From my side, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the sessions.
Thank you very much from. Yeah, thank you.